Sorry, I'm here. Sound check.
We hear you. Thank you. Give us just a couple more minutes.
Is the tech ready? The Wednesday, May 4th, 2022 Planning Commission is called to order. Will you rise with me and say the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Attorney, do we have a quorum?
Yes, Madam Chair, and I just wanted to let you know that Associate City Attorney Corey Evans is here, and she'll be representing the Planning Commission on items 1 and 4 on your calendar. But I'll be here also.
Thank you. All right, during this meeting, a designated staff person will run the Zoom aspect of the meeting so that each commissioner can focus on the meeting rather than the technology. We have 2 commissioners joining us virtually tonight. If at any time during the meeting a commission member gets disconnected, the meeting will briefly pause to give them time to return. All matters requiring commission action shall be presented to the Planning Commission by the planning staff and the applicant. In situations where planning staff is the applicant, there will be just one presentation. City staff will make the first presentation, and the applicant will make the second presentation. Both presentations are limited to 5 minutes. To maintain an orderly meeting, all presentations shall proceed without interruption unless the commission desires to intervene with questions or comments. If you're here for the public hearings, one of the public hearings, the chair will open a public hearing for those physically present wishing to speak about an item. Those in favor of an item shall be heard first, followed by those opposed to an item. A 10-minute time limit will be allowed for public comment in favor of an item. A 10-minute time limit will be allowed for public comment in opposition. A staff member will track the 10-minute time periods and will raise their hand at the 5-minute mark, the 1-minute mark, and verbally call time when time expires. Who's our timekeeper tonight? Mr. Satterfield, thank you. The chair, in their discretion, may extend these time periods. All groups, organizations, neighborhoods, or similar associations desiring to comment are asked to appoint one spokesperson to present their concerns or point of view to the commission on each agenda item. The public has been encouraged to submit their comments in writing via a web-based form located on the City of Wilmington's website. All comments received prior to 3 p.m. today were forwarded unedited to the Planning Commission. All comments received will be delivered to City Council when the item advances. All comments received will be made available to the public if requested. All of our votes will be roll call votes after proper motions are made and consistency statements are read into the record. The chair will state the outcome of the vote and the action. Rezoning requests that receive an unfavorable recommendation from the Planning Commission may be appealed by the applicant to the Wilmington City Council. Appeals should be in the form of a letter submitted to the city clerk within 10 days of this hearing. Any appeals and all items approved tonight will be heard tentatively at the June 7th, 2022 City Council meeting. All right, Commissioners, the minutes from the April 6th were in your packet. Are there any comments or changes? Can make a motion to approve?
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the
I'll
April 6
second.
minutes.
Commissioner Lennon has moved to approve the April 6 minutes, seconded by Commissioner Pollock, and we will take a voice vote on this one. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The April 6th minutes are approved. All right, our first item is a conditional district rezoning for properties containing .63 of an acre located at 1415 and 1417 42nd Street from R10 Residential to RB CD Regional Business Conditional District to allow an existing nightclub and beauty salon to continue and add a plant shop nursery as a permitted use. And our staff report will be by Patrick McHoney. Welcome.
Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the Commission. The site is located on the east side of 42nd Street, and as mentioned, contains approximately 0.63 of an acre. This site is currently occupied by an existing nightclub and personal service use. They are currently operating as a legal nonconformity on the site within the existing structure. This map shows a general vicinity surrounding the request. These are photos of the subject property, and these are photos of the adjacent land uses. As mentioned, the site is currently zoned R10 residential. The site is bordered by R10 residential zoning to the north, east, and west, with RB regional business to the south. Residential uses are located northeast and west of the site, with commercial uses to the south towards Oleander Drive. The applicant proposes to rezone the properties from R10 residential to RB regional business conditional district. This is to allow for the existing nightclub and personal service use to continue, along with an additional retail garden shop with outdoor storage of products. The proposed rezoning would bring the existing nightclub in operation since at least the early 1990s into zoning compliance. The use will be served by 3 driveways, which will be required to be brought into compliance with city standards, along with the installation of sidewalk along 42nd Street. The retail plant shop, which is proposed within 300 square feet of the existing structure, so there's no structure addition proposed with this proposal. There is a fenced-in display area of approximately 1,200 square feet that is also proposed. The site is currently located within a suburban commercial retrofit and neighborhood scale infill development area of opportunity, and is also located within or between 2 mixed-use centers identified on the Comprehensive Plan's Growth Strategies map. These designations promote commercial development where appropriate, placing an emphasis on surrounding neighborhood character and compatibility. The plan also supports additional services near existing neighborhoods that are appropriate and limited in impact to the surrounding areas. The proposed expansion is generally consistent with the surrounding neighborhood and maintains an appropriate transition of uses from Oleander Drive along 42nd Street. The existing nightclub and personal service use have historically served the area, and adding an additional neighborhood retail use of this scale would be appropriate with the surrounding neighborhood. Staff believes that the proposed zoning amendment is consistent with the recommendations of the Create Wilmington Comprehensive Plan, and that the request is reasonable in the public interest. Staff recommends conditional approval with the conditions listed in your case summary be applied. That concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions, and the applicant is here as well.
Thank you, Mr. Mahoney. Do we have any questions for staff at this time, Commissioners? All right, thank you. And the applicant's present?
Thank you, and good evening, Madam Chair and members of the Planning Commission. My name is Matt Nichols. I'm here tonight representing the applicant, Reggie's LLC, and with me tonight are Charles Kruger and his wife, Emily, who along with Matt Hearn, are the owners of Reggie's. Reggie's is a longtime Wilmington bar. There's also a hair salon. Angie's Hair Salon is in the current building. And what we're proposing tonight is a rezoning really for two purposes. It's to provide an updated conditional district site plan for the property, which it doesn't have that now. It is to make the existing legal non-conforming use conforming and provide a site plan, as I mentioned. And also really to add a plant shop, a retail plant shop to the existing building. And I have several slides here that I think will highlight why we think this is a very good thing with this rezoning request. I know the commissioners are familiar with the subject property and the vicinity. I'll just point out that it has very good access at Oleander Drive. There's a signalized intersection there, and you'll see on the traffic slides here that we're going to show that the plant shop really doesn't add much traffic at all to the existing use. As Mr. Mahoney mentioned, the property that we're asking to be rezoned is essentially shown by these two slides. CDRB, which is consistent with the RB zoning in the vicinity, but again, conditional district, so it's going to be limited to whatever is ultimately approved and any conditions that the commission and city council would put on that. Here's a general vicinity map showing the existing, again, legal non-conforming parking area and the building, the multi-use building, and the building is commercially used now. As you go down, or looking north on 42nd Street, you can see the subject property on the left. And as you get closer, you can see there's really two parking areas. To the south of the building is a parking area. That property is currently zoned RB. The property itself is the R10 property, and it consists of the bar and the hair salon. And then you can see the legal non-conforming parking area to the north of the building. And again, one of the benefits of this proposal is we're going to have a site plan, and it will provide the city and the owner and the neighbors a site plan as to where the parking is. It'll be enhanced with landscaping. It'll conform to the current codes, and there's many benefits for that. Looking south on 42nd Street, you can see the bar building in the distance, but the portion of the property that's up on Peachtree, we're going to leave that R10 for future residential development. We think it'll provide a nice transition from the surrounding R10 as you get closer to Oleander, where there's some more intense commercial uses. And here's just another vantage point here of the intersection of 42nd Street and Peachtree. And again, you can get a better view of the residential property that will remain. On the left side of the screen, that's a previous Google Street View map of Reggie's. And that the part of the building that's going to be the plant shop was really a storage area. On the right side of the screen, you can see current. And currently, the plant shop, it was opened. And as a result of COVID and other things that significantly affected our bars, restaurants, as well as all business owners, my clients did what they could to try to keep the business going. I know they sold merchandise and T-shirts, and Emily, Charles's wife, opened up the plant shop. It was discovered that that was not allowed because of the zoning. So we are trying to work with the city to work through that, and in looking at the property and the proposed plant shop, we thought that a rezoning of the property made the most sense. Then we could bring the property into conformity and have a site plan moving forward. The good thing is you know exactly what it's going to look like. That's the plant shop that you see there, and you can see the outdoor plant area. Again, very low impact. We're not adding any heated square footage or feet to the building, and we're adding a small outside display storage area for the plants. And you can see they did a nice job with replacing the door inside the plant shop. If approved, they would like to enhance that even more with additional plantings and really improve the site. My clients, Matt and Charles, started as bartenders at Reggie's, I think back in 2001, and bought the business, had worked there, And in 2020, they had the opportunity to buy the business. They now own it. They're very much looking forward to now as owners enhancing the site. It's a great local business. It's a great place for local music. It's a music venue, and I think that's a big part of Wilmington. So it's really they're really trying to improve the site as the owner-operators now. Here's another view of the plant, the outside display area, and just another view. And we think, again, it's a very low-impact neighborhood use. You'll see on the, I'll go through a few of the site plan items and then point out a few of the other benefits we think there are to the rezoning. But on the site plan, you can see that some of the highlights here, we're going to improve the driveways to commercial standard. We're going to add ADA-compliant sidewalks and parking spaces. We will add an 8-foot wooden fence along the entire back part of the property and along the north part where the R10 cutoff will be. And generally, there's going to be requirements for low-level buffering and streetscaping, and all that will be done to the code as we go through the TRC process. Just a big improvement over the existing conditions. So what the proposal does, we're seeking to add one new, very low-impact use, the plant shop. It's going to allow us to improve the existing commercial property, and it's commercial today. It'll create consistency with the zoning and the existing legal non-conforming commercial uses. We're going to preserve the residential on Peachtree, and it's going to provide the city and the property owners with an approved site plan moving forward. A couple things I'll point out that it does not do. We're not proposing any change to the commercial nature of the building or the size of the building, square footage of the building. There's not going to be any significant traffic impacts. We're not putting any commercial uses on Peachtree Avenue, and we respectfully contend that adding the plant shop is going to have no negative impacts on the neighborhood. We deem it as a positive. We think it'll be a convenient place, a neighborhood scale retail that folks will enjoy shopping there. The estimated trip generation, I point this out because under the proposed development analysis that staff did, the AM peak hours, the plant shop adds 1 trip. The PM peak hours are adding 4. These are extremely low numbers. The other thing I would point out that the main use of the property, the bar, there's no trips in the morning. And so it's really a complementary mixed use. The plant shop's going to be being used at a time when the bar is not used and vice versa. So it really is sort of the definition of mixed use, 2 very different but compatible uses in the same building. As Mr. Mahoney mentioned, we think it's very consistent with the comprehensive plan. We're located between 2 mixed-use places, and we're also located in a suburban commercial retrofit adjacent to the neighborhood scale infill development designation. I won't read through all these. This shows that, again, we're in the suburban commercial retrofit, and the policies and goals in the comprehensive plan weigh in favor of this, and that's in the staff report. I mentioned this in the comprehensive plan. Again, I mentioned the local music, but local music is a big part of Wilmington, and in the comprehensive plan, there's a portion in there that talks about, supporting local artists, local events, cultural, public art, film festivals, et cetera. I really think that this venue fits right into that, and under what the citizen said section of that part of the plan was we need more music venues needed. And again, Reggie's is a big supporter of local and regional music, and it's one of the few places in Wilmington that you can go to see sort of a bigger event. And it's been supportive of live music for many, many years. So staff recommends approval, and I'll just end on a few things here that I think I mentioned all these, of all the benefits. I won't repeat those. I'll leave that up there. I do have a petition signed by 200 people in support of this rezoning. If you have any questions about it, my client's here to answer questions about that. But if I may, Madam Chair, I can hand that to the clerk to the board. And I know my clients would like to say a few words, but we'll save that for the public comment period. And I'm glad to answer any questions that the commission may have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioners, do you have any questions for the applicant right now? Commissioner Pollack?
Mr. Nichols, real quick question. As in prior discussions that I know you've participated in, noise, and I'm really focused on the bar issue, and you talked about live music and all that. So to ensure conformity and all that, there are no plans to have outside noise?
That is
Outside
absolutely
volume.
correct. This is not about trying to expand to outdoor music. This is I should have made that clear. This is a completely indoor music venue, and that's what we're proposing. So we're not proposing any outdoor music, and that's a great point. I wanted to make that clear.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Nichols. All right, we will open the public hearing, and we'll start with anyone who's here to speak in favor, and then we'll do in opposition. And each segment is 10 minutes, and Mr. Satterfield will help us keep time there. So the public hearing is open for anyone who would like to speak, and the clock will start ticking. It goes by quickly, so.
This is super short. My name is Charles Kruger. I'm half owner of Reggie's LLC and the 42nd Street Tavern. First off, thank you so much to our friends, family, and neighbors for coming out to show their support. And thank you very much to the Planning Board for considering our proposal. Just a brief history, I think Matt Nichols already covered a lot of this, but Matt and I started as bartenders for the previous owner of Reggie's in 2001. We worked really hard and were able to buy the business in October of 2004. Travel into the future a little bit. In October of 2020, after muscling through a pandemic for 2 years with no income coming in due to our closure and a mountain of back bills and back rent, we decided we could either sink or swim, and we swam. We scraped up everything that we could and were able to acquire the property. Before that, we never had the motivation to do much to the outside to make it aesthetically pleasing. And anyone familiar with the area knows that Reggie's has historically been a bit of an eyesore. Now that it's ours, we just want to make it as nice as we possibly can. We can't think of a better way than to add a plant shop with my wife and some nice new landscaping upgrades. In our area of town, where we're surrounded by businesses that consist of broken down cars, we just want to add a little green space. Thanks again for hearing us out, and thanks again to everyone that came out to support.
Thank you, Mr. Kruger. And now start with your name and where you live.
Sorry. My name is Jen Cieslak. I live on Varsity 818, and I live in Midtown. I've been there for quite some time right now, and Reggie's is a good stomping ground that I've been going to for many, many years. Last March, when I heard that Reggie's was having a plant pop-up sale, I was super stoked. I stopped by, and I was in awe of the variety of care of plants and herbs, and I was attracted by the brightly colored and unusual specimens that I have never seen before. I asked a bunch of questions about each one, and Emily was very pleasant and very helpful. I bought a few little guys, but my most prized possession that I found was a grape jelly aloe. And it's a very dark burgundy red plant that has that's part of the succulent family. Emily told me how to take care of it, and I followed her lead. This plant started out very small, and now over a year later, it needed to be repotted. It has grown out of its pot, and it started to need to spread out its roots. And like my grape jelly aloe, Emily and her business needs to have a solid place to spread and grow her roots too. With so many big businesses that have left Midtown, like the Kmart and the Burger King, and it's kind of like a concrete jungle over here, it's nice to see that small businesses are flourishing, and all I ask is that Emily could flourish as well and be rooted at Reggie's. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Thanks for letting us speak. When people ask me where am I at to make an appointment or just come see me, I say, you know where Reggie's is? They go, yeah. I say, I'm right across the street from it. You can't miss it.
Sir, could
So
you give us
everybody
your name?
seems to know where it's at.
Oh, yes, sorry.
Sir.
Start with your name and your address.
David Wallen. I'm sorry.
Thank you. And your address?
And I'm a practicing attorney. I do my office across from Reggie's. I've been there for 18 years, and they were there long before me. I've known the folks there for quite a while. I'm also a musician, and I can tell you there's probably more times when they would have wanted to fuss about me making noise than I've ever heard anything disturbing coming from there. Reggie's has just been a real asset over the years, and can be a quirky or a straight up hard rock and roll kind of place on any given night, depending on who's going to be performing or not. But I've never had any issue with them. I can't imagine having better neighbors and friends. We drive out and wave at each other as we go and stop and talk like neighbors always do. So what they're trying to do right now, to me, forced me into making my place look better because they were starting to make me look bad. But they've improved the neighborhood beyond anything that you could ever hope for. And I think their goals and the nursery that they're wanting to put in is as a neighbor, as somebody that looks out my front window and sees them every day, I can't imagine why anybody would have any opposition to this. I support it 100%, and thank you for listening to us.
Thank you. How's our time? We're about halfway through the 10-minute time limit. Anyone else here to speak in favor of this item? Come on up. And start with your name and address.
Greetings, Council. I'm James Hoffman. I live in Ogden, been there since about 2012. I'm an audio engineer for Reggie's and half the venues in this town, as well as a lot of the bands I tour with as well. I think the proposed beautification of this area is a vital and critical part to the sustainability of the business. Pending that another wave comes through of COVID or something along those lines, we've all seen the very negative aspects and impacts financially and everywhere else as far as the fiscal end of a lot of these businesses. I've seen a lot of places go under because of COVID, for example. Obviously, it's been stated that musically they're a huge and very, very, very integral part of the music scene and have been for a long time, and hopefully they will remain that. Yeah, I think the plant thing's pretty cool. That was something new to me, but that's just another interesting facet of their business model, because you figure Angie's got the hair salon, and I believe she still sells records out of there. So it's a little like a music shop, and they have literally anything you could think of in there. You've got the musical aspect of the business itself, Reggie's, and then just to add another facet of the business I think it's a wonderful thing. Plus, obviously, the area benefits from the beautification standpoint of it as well. So that's about all I got, but
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much for your time.
Thanks.
Three seconds. 3:43.
Okay,
Thanks.
I'll be quick. My name's Haley. I live on Cherry Avenue. Super excited about the plant store. I bought a bunch of plants from her to try and beautify our yards. But I think the main thing is the bar's not going anywhere. It's going to be there. All this does is create some beautiful front space with sidewalks and a nice area, because I walk and ride my bike through there. I work in the neighborhood as well. And there's no sidewalks. There's no green space there at all. So I don't see any reason why we shouldn't approve this.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Rich Mason. I live on 1309 South 43rd Street. A lot of the slides that have shown tonight have my home in the actual slides. It's a block away. I think the guys have done a great job cleaning up the area. It's pleasant to drive by. The proposed things that this is the first time I'm seeing them look outstanding, and I think as far as our neighborhood, it's going to be a very pleasant addition to it. The sidewalk there sounds great, because a lot of my neighbors that are here tonight and we do walk back and forth in that area, and the proposed sidewalk is great because traffic is increasing in this area, and the nightclub and the plant shop are still pleasant places for us to walk to. So I think as far as my neighbors and I, we're excited to see the proposed rezoning and look forward to it. And as far as evening noise, I have never really heard anything. Their patrons are very cordial on listening to the owners, on keeping the noise down when they're outside. All the music is inside, and I have to say that I can hear Mac's Speed Shop across Oleander more times than I've ever heard Reggie's at their hours. And I think it's a great addition to the neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mason. How are we, Mr. Satterfield?
1 minute and 40 seconds.
All right.
My name is Sarah Williams, and I live at 707 Jennings. And I counted before I came here. I have 19 plants from her. I have a 3-foot pepper plant that is still budding that I took in from last year. She's just an awesome addition. My mom goes there. My sister goes there. All my people at work go there. It's just a beautiful, beautiful thing she's doing. So I appreciate your consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. We have any time left on the clock?
I'll make it quick. Steve Musso. I live about 221 Yorkshire, about 2 minutes away. My only options right now for plants are 3 big box stores, right? Walmart, Lowe's, Home Depot. Years ago, we had Zone 8, that closed. So to have a local business actually be able to open that I can go and support, that's 2-3 minutes away, instead of having to go to the big box stores, I think is fantastic, and I'm fully supportive of them doing it. So appreciate it.
Thank you. All right, we will move on to anyone who is here to speak in opposition of this item.
Chairman, Board, my name's Keith Smalley. I have 2 properties.
Could you get a little closer to the microphone and start with your name and address?
Keith Smalley. I have 2 properties on Peachtree Avenue. I don't think the bar is the problem. I think the problem we're having in the neighborhood is trying to change the zoning on it. Some of the things that have gone on from, when these guys took the bar over, they don't follow the rules. They cut trees down, they got busted on that, stop work order. They're parking on a residential 10 zone lot. They're a byproduct of their business, which is their parking. On occasion, there's some bass music we hear because they leave the doors open in a private club, which I understand is, you're not supposed to do that. A little bit of trash in the ditch, noise from patrons that walk home at 1, 2, 3 in the morning, a little hooting, whistling, yelling, and whatnot. I can live with all that. We had a little problem with graffiti. They have a real nice design on the south side of their building. I think there was a little bleed over on some of the other businesses in the area. Also, they put a flower shop in. Okay, where'd they get permission to do that? Flip side of that is it's got an AC unit, a mini split going through the side of it. So I called county. No permits issued, no electrical, no no mechanical, none of that. So what I'm seeing from this impeccable group of people that have bought this bar is I'm seeing people that can't follow the rules. They can't do it the way they're supposed to have it done. And again, like I said, I don't have a problem with the bar. The bar's been there. I've lived there for 30 years, well, 28. I can deal with that. And I've been through 7 different bar owners, and now we're at these bar owners. So there are no buffers. There were buffers. They've been removed because of the hurricanes. We have a problem when they have large groups of people with the patrons coming around the back of the building on a residential property, which is owned by a friend of mine, and they're urinating. When they have a large function, we've had trucks lined up along the back property line of this residential property. And I just feel like as a resident that sometimes I'm being walked all over by these fine, upstanding people that want to open a flower shop and get a bar rezoned so it's legit. But then my 5-year outlook or 10-year outlook on this is, hey, what's going to happen in 5 or 10 years with this commercial rezoning that they've attained? Am I going to see an office building out there? I mean, are we going to put in a construction site where somebody's running skid loaders and whatnot? That's basically my concern. And I'm fine with leaving it as it is. It's fine. He can build 4 houses on it, make it residential, and then we just move on. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Smalley.
Good evening, Board. My name is Jeff Dobbins. My address is 201 Buckeye Drive in Ogden. But I also own all the property that pretty much surrounds Reggie's Bar, which is also residential rentals of mine. The bar, I've been to the bar. I don't really have any problems with the bar. I like the guys. I like what they do there. That's not the problem. The problem with the rezoning is it puts RB 10 feet from the corner of one of my residential houses, 10 feet. It also puts their backyard so that they can send their kids out in the back on the property line. So you can imagine being out barbecuing in the backyard and all of this development right there. It just looks terrible. As Mr. Smalley noted, they had graffiti on the back of the building as well as the shopping center on the other side. They had it painted, but they only painted the graffiti. So right now my tenants looking out at the back of their building is terrible. Before they purchased the land, Miss Bellamy, she kept about a 25-foot buffer all the way around the building, which I brought some pictures if you would like to see. It helped with noise. It kept people out of our yards, you know, like my tenants. I get a call from a tenant when they have a big event. His wife is in the backyard and the gentleman's urinating in the backyard. You know, so that really looks good for a family with kids. People use now that everything is clear cut, it's a path to cut the corner. You know, they don't go down to the corner and walk down. With the clearing of the land also late at night when people get in their cars, they just sit there with the lights on. Lights are on, just pointed at my tenants. You know, so I get calls that, what are we going to do about this? You know, it's loud. You know, a lot of them had loud exhaust. You know, 2 o'clock, we just sit out there and let them run. Probably letting the car warm up, I don't know. But I constantly lose tenants over the years because of the bar. Although we have, learned to live with it the way it was, we just don't feel like there's any need to expand. We feel like the garden center is just a cover for more expansion of the bar. It's just going to lead to more traffic out there, more parking. There was never any parking on that corner. It was all wooded. And I'm not so sure that lot was even permitted for parking. So it possibly could be, parking illegally now. Also, I have enough land. We just did a major renovation on a house over there, pulled all the permits, did everything properly, and I have enough land behind it. We're going to put 5 more houses directly behind Reggie's. Single family, residential. What am I going to do with that? What kind of site is that going to be for people looking out their back door? I think as a board, I think you have a duty to protect us in the neighborhood from commercial development. We need to be able to transition from commercial on Oleander. I have a commercial business on Oleander, so I get it. To the next block is got to be residential, and to pull RB down to 30 feet of the corner. I mean, you're just going to surround us, and my livelihood as far as rental property is going to be in jeopardy. of trying to put houses and keep tenants in there. I think we're going to definitely increase noise with cars, headlights. It's just not something that needs to be in a residential neighborhood. I mean, where I live, my house, 7 Mile Post and Ogden Tap Room is like a mile and a half away. On Thursday, Friday, and Saturday night, I can walk outside of my house and I'm at the concert. Okay, and I'm a mile and a half away of heavily wooded areas. So to tell me that we're not going to have a problem because we got an 8-foot fence just ain't going to get it. I hope you consider our comments and our thoughts. I have pictures if you need any of the before and after wooded areas, you know, of the way the bar was prior. And we don't have any problems with them continue like that. And thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Dobbins.
1 minute, 18 seconds.
1 minute, 18 seconds. If there's anyone else here to speak in opposition.
I'll try to be quick. When Mr. Mahoney was up, he had a zoning map displayed. Could that be brought back up? Had the blue and the...
Sir, can you state your name also?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Thanks, Amy.
Al Rogers, Audubon Boulevard. It was a different map that was showing, but this is close enough. It shows the crosshatch pattern, which is all R10. When I first moved in the neighborhood over 40 years ago, there was a commercial building there. They sold carpet out of the place. A number of years later, the bar went in. The woods, where that warehouse was woods came up to that little warehouse in the back. They stored extra carpet and stuff out there. And after the bar went in, after some time, they went ahead and encroached, cleared it off for parking. It's been done a second time. The picture that they showed where he mentioned legal parking on one side, legal parking on the other. I don't know if you could pull that up for me. On the Oleander Drive side, all of the parking is legal because it's in the commercial zone. All of the parking to the, let's see, all of the parking on the Peachtree Avenue side is
That's time for the
illegal. It was not.
time period is up.
Yes, ma'am. But it's not, yeah, that is not legal. It's the whole area on this side is non-conforming.
Thank
We'd
you.
like to keep it that way. Thank you.
Mr. Rogers, thank you for coming out. Thank you, everyone, for your participation. Before we bring the applicant back up, I wanted to consult Madam Attorney for the crowd, especially and the commissioners who aren't familiar with it, talk about the legal non-conforming and what the implications of that are, especially if the petition were to be denied. What would the implications for the existing legal non-conforming use be?
Yes, if the application is denied, the legal non-conforming uses, so the bar that presently exists, as well as the hairdresser salon that presently exists on the property, would be able to remain. The only thing that would not be able to remain would be the garden shop. So those legal non-conforming uses would be allowed to stay if the commission does not recommend moving forward.
Okay, thank you. So there's no recommendation. Our recommendation does not include any comments on the bar and its operation. So, and I'll invite the applicant back up if you'd like to provide some additional comments.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Just a few. I know Mr. Smalley had mentioned something about, well, I think the first two speakers, remember them saying they really didn't have a problem with the bar. It seemed like the issue was with the rezoning, I guess, in theory or concept. And with the conditional district rezoning process, I know as the commission knows, but just to clarify, we would only be allowed to do what the city says we can do on our site plan, subject to all the conditions listed in any approval. So this doesn't allow us to come in and do anything that's not shown and being requested. And if somewhere down the line someone wanted to do something different, they would have to go back through the entire process, which would involve a neighborhood meeting. It would involve public hearings before this commission, public hearing at the city council. So that is really, to me, that's certainly not a reason to deny this. There was also a comment about, following the rules or not following the rules. I give my clients a lot of credit. A lot of people that would have a legal non-conforming use, they would just let it continue in its current status. It doesn't meet the code. Why change it? But they're wanting to invest in the property and improve it. And the conditional district process it's a great process for that. We'll have a site plan moving forward. We will, so we're here because we're trying to follow the rules. That's what this is about, is trying to get what is a legal nonconformity, which the city attorney's already mentioned that's not going anywhere, but trying to get a site plan on it, and at the same time, add the ADA compliant parking spaces, add the sidewalk, put up the fence, and add the landscaping. All these things we think are going to be a benefit to the neighborhood. There was mention about headlights. Again, we're putting up an 8-foot solid wooden fence around the perimeter. I think that would address some of those concerns. And so I guess in sum, to me, it kind of boils down to two things. One, we do want to have an approved site plan and have a CD, the rezoning moving forward. But really what it boils down to is we're trying to add a plant shop to this already existing commercial use, multi-tenant commercial use in this building. And in doing so, it's going to add a lot of benefits to the area. And it's a really complementary use to the bar. It's maybe it's an unusual mixture, but I think it's great. And I think that's what mixed use is really about, is taking perhaps two sort of different uses that will have different peak hours, different parking demands at different times of the day. And on top of that is adding just neighborhood retail. We heard from folks that, you don't have to get on College Road and go 3, 4, 5 miles away to go buy your plant. You can walk to it, or just, go to a neighborhood store. And so we think it's a very positive request, and we appreciate your consideration. We're glad to try to answer any questions you may have.
Commissioners, do you have any questions for the applicant? Commissioner Lennon?
So you referred to conditional approval on an approved site plan.
Yes, sir.
So does that mean they can go tweak the site plan after they get conditional approval?
Well, in my experience, any tweak that is deemed a major tweak, and it doesn't take much at all, any change has to still be approved by staff administratively. But anything that would be of any significance has to come back before this commission, has to go to city council. And in my experience with approved plans, when you're trying to go in and maybe get a modification, usually the answer is take it to the planning commission, take it to the city council. It doesn't take a whole lot for it to be deemed something that you have to go back and get a site plan changed to. Certainly couldn't change any uses, we couldn't add any uses not being approved. We couldn't add any intensity to the site. We couldn't add any density, although there's no real residential density issues here. Couldn't change traffic, circulation pattern, anything like that. The way the site is, I really don't know what you would change other than maybe enhancing the landscaping and that sort of thing. But we worked with staff on that.
So this is very different than a straight rezoning?
Yes, sir. Very different, vastly different. Again, with a straight rezoning, we could come in and do any number of the 20 or so uses. It wouldn't come before this commission. It wouldn't even go to city council. It would go through the TRC process, and it would be by right development. But with this, we have a specific site plan. We still have to go through the TRC process, but we have a specific site plan, if approved, subject to the conditions, any conditions the commission sees appropriate and city council deems appropriate. So, yeah, what you see, if approved, is what you get, and that's all we can do. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right. Thank you, Mr. Nichols. Commissioners? What are your comments on this one? Where are you on it? Commissioner Pollak?
Yeah, I'm going to make a motion.
Oh, thank you. Commissioner Bowman?
That's right. I'll acquiesce. Go ahead.
I was going to make a motion. I'm going to make a motion that we approve the request, assuming that this is demonstrated, the request is consistent with the objectives and policies of the Great Wilmington Comprehensive Plan. Commission considers the approval to be reasonable and in the public interest because the proposal would allow for additional retail uses in a manner that is compatible with the surrounding zoning and neighborhood.
Okay. Commissioner Pollak has moved that agenda item number 1 is approved. Do I have a second?
Second.
Commissioner Sharp has second. And we will take a roll call vote. Commissioner Bowman?
Did we reference the conditions in the staff report? I'm sorry.
There's 5 of them. I'm sorry, I don't understand the question.
Your motion, did that include the conditions of the staff report?
Yes, it would. Yes, it would.
Okay. Thank you.
So for the record, I restate my motion to include the conditions as put forth in the staff report.
Thank you. All right, well, we will start our vote again. Commissioner Bowman?
Aye.
Commissioner Goins?
Aye.
Commissioner Lennon?
Aye.
Commissioner Lyle, aye. Commissioner Pollak?
Aye.
Commissioner Sharp? Commissioner Woodruff?
Aye.
All right, the agenda item number 1 is approved, 7-0.
I'm going to change chairs. My chair's broken.
Okay, as the crowd quietly leaves, we will move on to agenda item number 2, which is a conditional district rezoning of property containing 4.82 acres located at 205, 209, 213, and 217 Middle Sound Loop Road from New Hanover County, RFMM CZ0, conditional district residential multifamily low-density district to MD17 CD, high-density multiple dwelling residential district, conditional district, for a 72-unit multifamily senior housing development, and Mr. Walton is here to deliver our staff report.
Good evening. An annexation petition has been submitted for consideration at next month's City Council meeting. The proposal tonight is to consider the initial zoning of this property from multifamily in New Hanover County to multi-dwelling 17 units per acre conditional in the city for a 72-unit affordable senior housing development. This project dates back to June 15, 2020, when the New Hanover County Board of Commissioners approved a request to rezone the site from R15 for this project. On April 14, 2022, the New Hanover County Engineering and Planning and Land Use issued commercial site plan approval for construction of this project. The site plan is considered approved and vested under the New Hanover County ordinances, including building setbacks, buffers, parking, driveways, utilities. Stormwater runoff has also been approved by both the county and the state. All permits and plans have been approved and vested and are ready to begin construction yesterday if they wanted to. This is the general area of where the site is located at the intersection of Middle Sound Loop, Lindauer, and Market Street. It's also across the street from Publix, as you can see in this photo. These are photos of the property. You can see that it is a wooden vacant tract. Some of the adjacent properties surrounding the site, including churches, adjacent residential uses, as well as the Publix that's across the street. Once again, the project has been approved by the county for 17 residential units of affordable senior housing for a period of 30 years. There is no delay in starting construction of the site. One condition to point out is Condition 7 in our staff report, which we felt was important and consistent with most city-zoned parcels. The condition reads that a 5-foot sidewalk shall be installed along the entire frontage of the subject site along Middle Sound Loop Road. Street trees at a rate of 1 per 50 feet shall also be installed within the existing right-of-way. I've discussed this with the applicant, and the new impervious surface for sidewalk was included in both the county and the state stormwater permit. I've asked Rob Gordon to be here today, and I'm not sure if he's here tonight, but I also saw that their applicant engineer, Richard Collier, is here to also address any stormwater questions that you may have. The comprehensive plan encourages responsible growth of the city's population through redevelopment, infill, and appropriate new development and annexation. The site is adjacent to many commercial businesses along Market Street, as well as a full-service grocery store across this property on Middle Sound Loop. Excuse me. The proposed project would include 72 affordable senior housing units for a period of 30 years. Though a concentration of affordable housing units in a single location is cautioned against by the policies of the comprehensive plan, the fundamental need for affordable housing and the proximity of these uses to services outweighs staff's concern. There will be discussion tonight based on our required public notification process. I set up a timeline on this slide to kind of explain this further. We notify legislative hearings by 3 methods as required. So we post a sign on the property. We send out letters to 300 property owners within, we send out letters to property owners within 300 feet of the subject site, and we also advertise public news notices in the Star News. We further post the staff's case summary and all attachments ahead of the meeting on the city's website. We were notified by adjacent property owners that the property signs were down, and explained the timeline here of our attempts to keep those signs in place. So this just, I wanted to point out that we did attempt to try to keep the signs in place. And I think Ms. Bradshaw did visit the site today and said that those signs are still up as of this meeting. Another condition I wanted to bring to your attention was a slight change in the staff conditions. We'd like to add the underlined so that it's clear that the use would be a 72-unit affordable senior housing development as stated in the applicant's application. So condition 4 would read that the use and development of the subject property shall be in accordance with the site plan and application as submitted and accepted by City Council at their 6/7/22 business meeting. To further the point of the use, we recommend added condition 13, which says the use shall be limited to a 72-unit multifamily affordable senior housing development. Further, the residents shall be restricted to 55 years of age and older. To conclude, the initial zoning of the subject site is generally consistent with the purpose statement of the Create Wilmington Comprehensive Plan, and staff believes the request is reasonable and in the public interest and recommends conditional approval with the conditions as amended in the case summary. Again, just to remind everyone, this site is approved and vested under county zoning ordinances. All permits and plans have been approved, and the applicant can begin construction at any time, regardless of this hearing. Just wanted to make that clear. I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Commissioners, do you have any questions for staff? Mr. Goins?
What happens after 30 years? Do they have to reapply, or can they change the use?
Sure. So they are being rezoned to a conditional district, 72-unit senior housing development. After 30 years, they have the option of either reapplying for another 30 years, or at that time, they could come back in with another CD rezoning to do another model. Perhaps the applicant can go into more detail about their future plans after 30 years.
Thank you. Commissioner Lennon?
So the county fully approved this project, right?
Yes, yes.
So that means it went to the county planning commission?
Yes. This project has gone to county planning, the county commissioners for the rezoning, and the paperwork was included in your case summary of the letters explaining that the project has been fully approved by the county.
Okay. And as far as you know, the county planning follows the same notification protocols that the city of Wilmington does, to the best of your knowledge?
To the best of my knowledge, I don't think so, but I don't know for sure, sir. I haven't looked that up.
Okay. But they had public hearings at both planning commission and the county commissioners?
The county commissioners did have a public hearing notification and a community meeting with the county planning staff or planning board and the county commissioners prior to the rezoning being approved back in 2020.
Thanks.
Thank you. I have a follow-up question to Commissioner Goins. So the 30-year period, is that just for the affordability? Or you're saying that the 30-year period, they have to stop and everything they're doing and reapply?
Sure. That may be a question for the applicant. My impression of what they've submitted to us is a 30-year affordable for the federal loan, I believe, that they're applying for, but I'm really guessing at this point. I think the applicant may be able to address that.
Commissioner Woodruff?
Jeff, the amendment that you gave to us just a little bit on number 4, I know that's just kind of a restatement of what we've seen, but has the applicant agreed to that?
To tell you the truth, I haven't, I just created this afternoon, so I haven't asked them if they agree to it or not, but these items were basically mirroring what was approved at the county commissioners that we wanted just to reintroduce as a condition. So just speaking as my assumption, I think they would be fine with it since this was already approved by the county in this manner.
But if they weren't agreeable to it, we would be giving something to them that they didn't otherwise have?
That's correct. This would be something for them to address once they made this presentation to you.
And
okay. Thank you.
Commissioner Sharp?
And the date there is accurate, 6/7/22?
That's the date for when it would go to City Council for the annexation consideration.
So it's a proposed date?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
The annexation, the voluntary annexation public hearing would occur on June 7th. By law, we have 60 days to apply a zoning district if council approves the annexation. And so the purpose of this meeting is to keep that in harmony so that we meet that 60-day deadline. And so that's why this hearing, that's why you're considering this tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Walton. Looks like there's no more questions for you at this time. Oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner Pollack.
Sure.
Two. One is for the chair. So we're here tonight just to assign a zone in the event that City Council decides to annex.
That's right.
That's correct. So that's the sole purpose of this discussion.
That's right.
Correct? Okay. So now to Jeff.
It's not to you. Yeah, there
Can you
go.
hear me now?
Yes, sir.
I have never had anybody tell me they couldn't hear me. That's okay. There's a first. I appreciate your clarification on the added condition 13, because I think that's important to this discussion and for the deliberation, because it's, what is it that we're actually talking about? Couple things that you put in your package, and I just wanted to make sure I understood. On, I think it's page 3 of your package, the second box down, it talks about exceptional design, it talks about watershed, impervious surface, et cetera, et cetera. Does this or does this not fit the definition of exceptional design? I was just curious. Or have we even gotten that far?
Well, the exceptional design is basically, in the city's ordinance, you're limited to 25% impervious.
Right.
And I don't believe the county has the same sort of regulations. The point of the chart in page 2 through 5 is to acknowledge the discrepancies between what our code would require and what the county's plan is approving. And it's basically just to lay it out there that there is some discrepancies, that it possibly doesn't fully comply with the city code, but it's already a vested plan regardless. So I think our intention there was just to make an example of what complies and what doesn't comply in our mind.
The last thing I'll ask you is on your conditions, the 12 that you have in the package.
Sure.
On number 11, it says, prior to a final inspection, a walkthrough with city construction management. For my edification, how soon does that happen, in the process? Is that just like an afterthought, or does that actually happen such that it gives time for all parties to correct any items that the inspector finds?
Sure. So a lot of these items are standard release items we require for any project in the city. And it's basically telling the contractor that before you can get a final CO on your building, you need to come and talk to city engineering so that we can go inspect, make sure that the stormwater plan is built and designed the way you said it was going to be designed, and that it's going to function. And so those are catch-alls that we include just so that the city staff can enforce the county-approved stormwater ordinance once they come in for final CO.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Walton.
Thank
And the
you.
applicants here?
I'm a lot shorter than Jeff. Hold that down. Normally, I start out with a thank you, and in this instance, to Mr. Walton, really, this is a very unusual circumstance that we're here today. So I just really want to thank Mr. Walton for his review of the project and working through it with the applicants. My name is Amy Schaefer. I'm here tonight on behalf of the applicants, Blue Ridge Atlantic, and we are asking for a zoning. It's a little odd, and let me kind of explain some of what's happened. So as Mr. Walton explained, this project has already been through the New Hanover County process that mirrors yours. There are slight differences. I think their notice requirement might be a few hundred feet less or more, just depending on what went through, because the city changed their, 300 feet, 500 feet notice requirements recently. But it's a very similar process. There's notice requirements, there's a public hearing before their planning board, there's a public hearing before the county commission, and the plan has to meet all of that. Not only did this project go before that process, it's already been through full TRC review through New Hanover County. So like Mr. Walton said, they could put shovels in the ground tomorrow. So the applicants have requested an annexation into the city of Wilmington under vested rights. And what that means is they're asking to bring their site plan with them to the city of Wilmington. Okay, why are we here then, right, if they already have a site plan? As Mr. Pollock said, you have to assign zoning. So we brought forth a project in a zoning district that we thought as closely mirrored the vested right that we have in New Hanover County as possible. And that is the multifamily 17. So I won't go through as much of the project specifics as I normally would because Mr. Walton did such a great job. Again, this is the project overview. Here's our current zoning. It's 17 units per acre under the New Hanover County zoning. We're asking for the 17 units per acre in the City of Wilmington zoning. Surrounding parcels. Here's just a picture, a rendering of what the project is going to look like. Here's a bit about the project. Again, it's a 3-story, 72 units, a mix of 1 and 2 bedrooms, senior living, affordable housing, 108 parking spaces, sidewalk. The sidewalk, part of the city requirements, as you saw on the condition, that's in addition to what our vested plan is in New Hanover County, is to provide sidewalk along the whole street frontage, and my clients absolutely agreed to that, as well as the street trees condition. The site plan, again, we're just asking that this plan that was fully vetted by New Hanover County be built, but that it be city property instead of county property. The unit design, just in case you all were interested, again, this is going to be a senior living facility for financially qualified individuals, and we'll get to that in just a second so that you have that information. And it's not just going to be put people in housing and do nothing. These are the amenities that are going to be provided: on-site laundry, security systems, balconies, storage areas, lounge with a fireplace, walking paths, a movie and game room. These are all going to be amenities provided to our residents. So why are we here, right? If it can be built, why are we here? Well, there's a need for housing. And the City of Wilmington has really been in the forefront of providing funding for affordable housing. The county is getting there, but the city is much more prepared for this kind of project. And so there are funding opportunities available in the City of Wilmington for this project. And this opportunity would allow city residents to be residents of a city project funded by the city who qualify between 30 and 80% AMI. And again, as we know, there is a drastic need for senior living, especially affordable senior living, and that this is a small drop in the bucket, but you know, it's definitely going to that deficit that we have in the city. And again, here's just some more information on the housing gaps that are available that we're hoping our 70-plus units can fill. And again, we're requesting the zoning most similarly situated to the zoning that we were entitled to in New Hanover County. This is a voluntary annexation. I know some residents were concerned and, you know, they don't want to be annexed. You can't be. You got to ask to be, and we're asking to be. And so what are the factors for a rezoning approval? Again, it's a little bit different because it's not a rezoning, it's a zoning determination for the city annexation. But still, let's go through some of these because I think our project qualifies. So what's changed or changing conditions? The housing gap. We need affordable housing. This is providing housing for 30 to 80% of the AMI of a target population of 55 years and older. We do have our vested rights from New Hanover County. We're within 300 yards of mixed-use places in a high-growth area close to services. Can't say it enough, we were approved and vested with New Hanover County. This project also promotes walkability in providing that pedestrian connection along the entire frontage of our property. It does promote a higher density, not a higher density than what is vested and allowed, just a higher density than what's in that area. And it's a mixed-use status. There really is a lot of services around that area that these people, the residents, would be able to walk and bike to. It assists with housing affordability, necessary senior housing, provides housing options in proximity to services, and provides services and amenities for seniors. So we would just ask that you all approve this zoning, and again, recommend approval of the zoning, it still has to go through any annexation procedures with the City of Wilmington City Council, and then, the recommendation would also go forward to the Wilmington City Council. I'm here to answer any questions, as well as our engineer, Richard Collier, and the applicant team, if you have specific projects regarding the affordability and the programmatic uses of the property.
Thank you, Ms. Schaefer. Commissioners, do you have any questions for staff? Excuse me, for the applicant. Commissioner Lennon.
This isn't just a straight assignment of zoning, it's CD, right?
It is a CD, and so there are a couple reasons for that. One is we already had a site plan, so, bring it in and get the conditions. Two, the City of Wilmington has an annexation policy that requires any voluntary annexations to come in with a conditional zoning and doesn't specifically address a vested rights plan. And so those two things combined is why we asked for the conditional rezoning. So again, all of those things would be conditioned, and just as Mr. Nichols said before, any change in that plan would then have to come back before this whole process again.
So Mr. Walton spoke to the conditions that are in our packet, but then the inclusion of a new one.
Yes, sir.
Is your client agreeing to that?
Absolutely, sir. That was a part of our application. It was part of our vested rights request. So yes, we are agreeing to Mr. Walton's additional conditions as well.
So this project is going to mirror what was approved by New Hanover County?
Yes, sir, with the addition of the sidewalk and the street trees. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Commissioner Bowman?
Thank you, Madam Chair. My question is just answered.
Oh, great. Okay. Commissioner Woodruff?
Ms. Schaefer, I apologize because I'm new to this procedure, but if we as the commission would deny this request tonight, I understand completely they've got in their pocket from the county the ability to do what they want to do.
Mm-hmm.
Would they do it?
Very likely, yes, sir. It comes down to funding, but eventually the project will be built.
But the basis for the need for annexation is primarily the financial end of it.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Sharp?
As I understand, this would be a satellite annexation. How
Yes.
far is it from the existing limits of the city boundaries?
Yes, sir. So from the actual corporate limits, I do not have that. It would have to be within 3 miles. But there is already property that was annexed into the City of Wilmington. So this yellow boundary right here is already a satellite annexation to the City of Wilmington.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Pollak?
Yeah, one quick clarification,
Sure.
and it just seems to come back to me is, I read, you read through the package, but more importantly is I come back to the page, and I'm trying to understand if in fact, I'll get there, sorry. It says, the zoning history, 72-unit multifamily senior housing development, okay?
Yep.
Residents 55 or older, and that's what's been approved.
Yes, sir.
Okay, help me understand where the concern or the comments or the feeling that, because I have a bullet point here, it says, the applicant proposes all 72 residential units to be considered workforce affordable housing. Where is that coming from?
Yes, sir. And they will be 30 to 80% AMI. So they will be, it's just also further restricted to age restricted.
So it will be affordable, but you got to be 55 years or older.
Yes, sir.
Interesting. How come we didn't just say that?
I'm not sure, sir.
Okay, well, you're the applicant. That's what
I
I'm
will,
asking.
yes, sir. I will definitely clarify that.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Lennon?
This might be best answered by one of your other applicant members, but this was originally approved in 2020.
Yes.
Having read all 200 and some comments on this, I'd be curious to know financially how has the world changed for this project today versus when it was approved?
Yes, sir, and if I may call them up for that.
And if I may, what I'm after is not, there's a perception that this is being done for financial gain, and so I'd just like to find out what the reality is.
Yes, sir.
Hey, I'm Chris Eisenzimmer with Blue Ridge Atlantic Development. We are the sponsor for the particular project. As you mentioned, we originally went through the process back in 2020, and I think we all know that was a much different environment in many situations, but particularly an interest rate and a construction building environment. In the last 120 days, interest rates for projects such as these have gone up 1.5 points, which is enormous in terms of the impacts to loan proceeds. A traditional market rate apartment developer would simply increase rents. That's how they make up the gap in terms of fixing those funding gaps. Due to the fact that this is restricted from 30 to 80%, we cannot exceed those levels. Our rents are essentially fixed at those particular levels dependent upon the applicant or the tenant's income. So it is sort of built in as a protection for future tenants to not have this rent escalation factor, the things that causes seniors and the workforce to be displaced in many growing municipalities around the country. That only being one piece of it, the building environment has substantially changed. And when I say substantially, lumber prices, for instance, are up 150% in many situations. We are just finishing a project down in Atlanta that started construction in July of 2021. When we bid the project, OSB was $7 per square foot. We paid $7 a sheet. We paid $50 per sheet for OSB. So these are the types of rapid increases in volatility that, frankly, I don't think anyone has ever experienced in both a rising construction cost environment as well as a rising interest rate environment that are really compounding on the feasibility challenges. So this is very much not for the gain of the development company, rather the sustainability of developing the project, being able to still offer the, Class A finishes in all of the units without having to sacrifice the quality of the interior of these units. Obviously, many seniors are on fixed incomes, so we truly feel that they deserve a place to call home that has the same finishes that many of us get to enjoy in our own homes. So that is purely the need for the request and the annexation. As for the affordability period, I can speak to that, the 30-year question. It's called a land use restriction covenant. It is imposed by the state of North Carolina where this has to be affordable for a minimum period of 30 years. It would not mean we have to come back and ask if we can continue to operate an apartment complex, but rather the affordability restrictions associated with that. And that is a deed restriction that runs with the land associated with the project.
Thank you.
And Mr. Pollock, to further answer your question, it's attachment 1 to our application. It's the vested rights memorandum that we submitted, and I do really think this sums up our project, the second paragraph. In August of 2021, Blue Ridge Atlantic Development received an award of 9% tax credits by the North Carolina Housing Finance Agency. The name of this project is Residence at Canopy Point, and it will consist of 36 one-bedroom units and 36 two-bedroom units, providing affordable housing units to 55-plus seniors in New Hanover County in the city of Wilmington. That's what we'd like to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Schaefer. Any other questions for the applicant?
Madam Chair.
Where's that coming from?
Madam Chair, I'd like to, just in response to Commissioner Sharp's question about distance from the corporate limits, it's 0.62 miles. Just wanted to make sure we had that information out there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Sharp.
I have one more question. So with the volatility of the market and the supply chain problems, if this project, assuming that it is approved, with the supply chain problems and with the volatility of the market and interest rates rising and the unpredictability, assuming that this project is approved, how soon would you be able to start? In other words, in order to minimize the impact of all these conditions?
So we've actually already started taking steps to mitigate that. From an actual moving of dirt, earth moving, we are anticipating starting in early July. There are some debt products out there that allow you to do what's called essentially an index and a spread lock, and we are able to lock in our rate today to not carry that risk. So it obviously puts a lot of pressure on us to be able to perform within the time frame provided there, which is why we will be closing in July on this. In terms of mitigating a lot of the building costs, we have already gotten in line to order trusses and windows and many of the items that are very, very long lead time items at this point. So we are doing everything we can, including early buying of things purely from our side to mitigate against future cost increases, and we're storing them in warehouses, and which is what we're doing on a lot of our projects, because every single one of them is in this kind of weird environment.
Thank you.
Thank you. One more, Commissioner Pollack.
Yeah, and this is to the chair or to Jeff, either one. Again, we're here tonight, we're deciding.
Yes,
again,
I'll clarify that before
what
the
is
public hearing.
Yeah, no, what is the appropriate zoning should city council decide to annex? I don't understand the process, and that's why I'm asking. Is it conceivable that council could say, yes, I want to annex, but I don't accept the zone? So, or is the question, it's both pieces?
They can make the decision that they feel is best, yeah, we'd have 60 days. If they didn't approve the zoning we move forward, then it would have to come back to us.
Okay.
So, but we have 60 days after the annexation to assign a zoning to it. So.
That's correct. And your recommendation in this instance would still go forward to City Council, just like any other project that you hear.
Thank you. All right. We'll open the public hearing on agenda item number 2. And to clarify, and we don't mean to be redundant, but it's an unusual situation. The question before us is not whether to approve this particular project. That was decided in June of 2020. What we're here to look at is the zoning that we're required to assign to it. Should it be annexed into the city? Is that a fair way to put it?
Yes, Madam Chair,
Attorney?
that's a good description of it. That's exactly what's before you. What's not before you is the annexation. That's purely to be considered by City Council. There's a public hearing set for that on June the 7th.
Thank you.
In this room.
Okay, in this very room. So some of the, we are harping on that because some of the comments that we received over the web seemed to indicate people felt it was a way to stop the project from being built, constructed, and that's not what we're here to discuss. So any comments will be more compelling if we talk about the actual decision that we're making today. So with that little tip, do we have another? Okay, just a moment. I haven't opened the public hearing yet, have I? Commissioner Woodruff.
Just a follow-up, Ms. Lyle, to what you just asked. This whole thing's got me confused. If we reject this application, and they go forward with the annexation, does the applicant have to come back to us with a clean slate as to what they want then?
Yeah, let's let our attorney, one of the attorneys in the room, address that one.
Mr. Woodruff, as I was explaining to Mr. Pollack, what would most likely happen, without speaking to the applicants, would be that if you recommended denial of our request, most likely we would just appeal that to City Council, and that would be heard with the annexation. If the board for some reason feels there is another zoning district that would be more appropriate for the project, you can certainly make that recommendation as well, and that would be heard by City Council. If none of those happen and for some reason City Council says no, then yes, we would come back to the drawing board and start the whole process again with you all.
Thank you.
Looks like
Ms.
Commissioner
Schaefer.
Lennon has a follow-up question.
Just to clarify, if we we're recommending a district, but with conditions,
Yes,
which your client has agreed to all of them.
yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to open the public hearing now. And we will start with anyone who's here to speak in favor of this proposal. And that will be a 10-minute time limit, and then we'll move on to anyone here to speak in opposition. Just start with your name and address.
I'm Katrina Knight, 811 Martin Street. I'm chair of the Cape Fear Housing Coalition. We supported Blue Ridge Atlantic in their application for tax credits, and I'm here tonight to support their proposal before you now. Blue Ridge Atlantic's proposal to provide 72 affordable senior housing units directly addresses a very critical gap in our housing stock. Our population is aging, and projects like the residents at Canopy Point can help us retain the wisdom and experience of our moderate income seniors who are too often unable to stay in the community where many of them have spent their whole lives. Employing an efficient and attractive design, as you've seen, Canopy Point will be high impact in terms of addressing the critical need for senior affordable housing highlighted in the city's own 5-year consolidated plan. The involvement of the North Carolina Housing Finance Agency guarantees that this project will serve only seniors and will remain affordable for many years to come. Wilmington's affordable rental crisis has only grown more acute with the advent of Hurricane Florence and now the pandemic. If we continue to allow everyone to say, I'm not against affordable housing, just place it well away from where I live, we are left with literally nowhere. And at a time when the situation has become so serious that we must seize literally every opportunity to bring affordable units online. Affordable housing development, it's a heavy lift, and partners willing to undertake this difficult work, they deserve our thanks and support, and in this case, our opening a path to the financial support that they need to be successful and to make this affordable housing possible. We desperately need your support of Canopy Point and their current proposal. The Cape Fear Housing Coalition is proud to endorse them as a model of responsible and affordable development. We thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Ms. Knight. Anyone else here to speak in favor of this item? All right, we will move on to those who are here to speak in opposition of this item. And we will start the clock at 10 minutes, so just keep your eye on Mr. Satterfield over there.
Hello, my name's Leanne. I'm a Queens Point resident, which is located off of Middle Sound Loop Road. So I frequent the Market Street and Middle Sound Loop Road traffic light several times a day. It's horrific some mornings, most evenings. With the addition of the Publix, it's great. I don't have to go on a main road to go to a grocery store. However, there's a lot of other surrounding neighborhoods that come to shop there. And so when there's cars coming from Market down Middle Sound and cars coming the other way on Middle Sound and heading towards Market, and then there's cars trying to pull out of Publix, it's a mess. And now on top of that, just a few hundred feet behind that, there's going to be one way for these residents to come in and out of their property for this apartment. The congestion in that area is dangerous. There's no walkability. If they put a sidewalk there, they're taking their lives in their own hands if they decide to try and cross the street of Middle Sound Loop Road. I do it daily with an elementary student to go to school. And, you know, people are not considerate with the way they drive. So with that, with the zoning, the MD 17, this type of zoning is intended to be applied within the urban core of the city and other areas with a full range of amenities and commercial services. This type of zoning is intended to provide a mix of densities. It's supposed to minimize traffic congestion, and we already see the writing on the wall for that. It is supposed to support transit use. There's no transit available for this apartment complex. So I guess that's a little bit of our gripe with this type of zone for this apartment complex. It's going up either way, but they did get their rezone for low density, and to put in a high density for a place that's surrounded by low density residential, I'm sure you can understand why a lot of the residents are not really for that. And real quick, I forgot all my notes. I'm sorry, I have it on my phone. This site where this is going existed in New Hanover County's jurisdiction during the adoption of the comprehensive plan, and it is not identified within an area of opportunity or within a mixed-use center. I did a lot of reading of the documents that were available online for this in regards to the zoning, and that is what I was found. The property near the intersection, I'm sorry. Well, I guess that's it. I know other people want to speak, but just trying to stick against this MD17 zoning, it just doesn't really seem to comply with what it's used for and where it's supposed to be used. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Tamara James. I live in the Ogden area. I echo my fellow neighbors' concerns. I'm here representing the opposition, and we even want to stress and ask how this was even passed by the county June 2020. What was going on? COVID. There was a lot of restriction. So we would even question how this was even passed by the county. Moving forward, we have a lot of concerns. Echoing her concerns: safety, flooding, traffic. We are not opposed to the project. We are opposed to the rezoning. I have a petition with many signatures supporting this, and I have some questions to ask of the commission, which I haven't seen all of the plans. What is the proposed and projected ADT for this development? For this new development, what is the proposed ADT?
We'll have someone
I'm sorry,
answer
ma'am,
your-
it's not a question and answer format. You feel free to address anything you'd like to, but the commission doesn't answer questions during public comment period.
Okay.
Yeah, it's our turn to hear you, and then afterwards we'll address your concerns. Thank
So
you.
the average daily traffic is going to be increased. They're saying 72 units. Okay, so let's increase it daily, weekly, yearly. Middle Sound Loop does not have the provisions to support that kind of traffic right now. Is there a development, I don't mean to ask this as a rhetorical statement, is there a development to widen and improve Middle Sound Loop to accommodate for this new development? Are there plans and provisions to include water runoff so there's no flooding? I want to also reiterate, there is a school down the street. There's school buses, heavy, dense traffic already on Middle Sound Loop. Adding this wonderful project, okay, for senior living, affordable senior living, will only add to that enormous traffic. Are there any plans for ditches? There's no water runoff. There's no ditches. What's the rework? I wanted to thank you for your time, and I want to submit these signatures to the clerk and strongly recommend that you vote against the zoning. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. James.
Madam Chair, we have 3 minutes and 31 seconds.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Betsy Albright. I live on Bloomington Lane in the unincorporated area of Ogden. I have many concerns about the proposed annexation and zoning about this property. First, I want to mention that the inadequate public notice, the signs that fell down were down for 5 days, and the community was not aware. We're kind of lucky that we got at least 200 people to rally the troops and talk to you guys. There's going to be a lot more. There were no site plans sent in the letter from the city of Wilmington, and I am within 300 feet of the property. It's hard to even know what is even being proposed without a site plan being included in your letter. The developer never held a community meeting for this application for annexation, so the residents are mostly in the dark. When this senior retirement apartment project was approved at the county planning meeting level in February 2020, I attended the meeting and spoke out in opposition. I spoke out almost at midnight. It was an almost 8 or 9 hour meeting. The June 2020 County Commission meeting was held at the height of the COVID-19 in-person restrictions, and it went completely under the radar of the community. It was approved with no community awareness from the public, but in the end, the applicant was denied a housing grant by the county, and the developer did not build. I thought the project was dead in the water. I haven't heard anything more about it until I received your letter from the city of Wilmington in late April 2022, that the applicant is seeking annexation into the city. A complete surprise to me and all of the Middle Sound community. All of these factors combined together does not build trust in a community, but sows discord and mistrust. According to your case overview analysis, the county approved high-density residential housing with the caveat restriction that, quote, the residents will be restricted to 55 plus years of age or older. The letter of the city of Wilmington sent to me states that the applicant seeking approval is 72-unit multifamily senior housing development. However, your case overview states that the applicant proposes all 72 residential units to be considered workforce affordable housing for a period of 30 years. When the applicant just made her presentation to you,
30 seconds.
A game room for low-income housing sounds like a bait and switch in purpose for me. Luxury amenities at low-income housing does not make sense. I'm wondering if this is actually intended for seniors or whether this is for workforce age people. This is at the Middle Sound Loop Light has major stacking and backups.
Time.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming out. All right, the public hearing is closed. Thank you, everyone, for your participation. We're going to bring the applicant back up to address some of the concerns that were brought up.
Thank you. The lack of walkability and lack of transit. I don't know how to say this, but part of the reason that people want to annex into the city of Wilmington is because they provide more amenities sometimes. And, you know, the city of Wilmington site plans tend to require sidewalks, and that's what we're putting. And the city's vision is that if this development puts in sidewalks, maybe the one next to them will put in sidewalks, and maybe the one to, so it's actually on the developer to help with the walkability. And so even though this is not quite contiguous right now to other City of Wilmington properties, maybe people in the county will do that. So the sidewalk condition was something that the city added because that's a city focus, and we're happy to comply. Transit, at New Hanover County's meeting on Monday night, there's going to be a resolution on the ballot for a quarter-cent sales tax for transit. So hopefully we can have a more robust public transit in the city of Wilmington, and that would certainly aid and assist with our seniors. How was this passed by New Hanover County? I can't speak to that. I wasn't involved. It was vested. There's an objection period. To my knowledge, nobody objected during that objection period. Flooding and infrastructure, the plan has been fully vetted through the technical review committee, so it will have to meet all of the stormwater requirements, all of the traffic requirements. It'll have to go through, or has gone through, all of those review processes with state stormwater, county stormwater, NCDOT, and I don't know if Mr. Gordon snuck out or not, but he's here if you have any other specific questions about stormwater, as well as Mr. Collier, because I didn't even pretend to be an engineer. You know, one of the speakers said that she's not opposed to the project, she's opposed to the rezoning. You know, that I'm not sure how to answer that. And as for the inadequate public notice, you know, Mr. Walton explained that and put up the timeline for the public notice. And so that's all I have in rebuttal, but I'm happy to answer any specific questions, or if there's anything in particular I missed that you'd like us to address, I'm happy to do so.
Anyone have questions, comments for the applicant? The new LDC puts the signs, the property signs, in the hands of the owners, so would you address that, the sign issue that they spoke about?
Sure. So the signs we put up, I think the city went back and even re-put up signs. Unfortunately, we cannot control vandalism and people tearing down signs, perhaps out of anger for the project. I don't know. We certainly are not taking signs down from a rezoning perspective. I did want to speak to one thing. We have never applied for a grant from the county. I think what was being referred to is the 9% credit process through the North Carolina Housing Finance Agency is an extremely competitive process. Approximately 200 projects apply every single year from across the state, and only 40 to 50 are awarded on an annual basis. In 2020, we applied for that. The project did not receive, due to some arbitrary scoring mechanics from a state perspective. We reapplied, continued investing into the project, reapplied in 2021, and did in fact receive the award of tax credits. So we have by no means requested or applied for any grants from the county's perspective. We did approach the county, however, about potential gap financing. However, we were told that the county essentially has placed all of their funds at this point, I think largely into the Starway project that many people have probably heard about along the Carolina Beach Road corridor. So I did want to address that as well.
Thank you. Sure. Commissioner Lennon.
Do you normally put amenities in your complexes regardless of the income of the tenants?
Yeah, oftentimes an unrestricted project, so a non-tax credit project that is 20, 30, 40 years, many of these projects do not have the amenities that our projects do. Many of those projects also do not have the regulatory eyes on them such as our projects do. The state actually mandates that we include these amenities into these projects. There's things such as fair housing that come into play from a legal perspective with respect to requiring these. The goal in building these types of projects is not to build what people think of as Section 8 buildings, that from an inner city perspective, but it's to encourage smart, high quality growth and development for the less fortunate and for the seniors of the population around the state and in the United States, frankly. So every single one of our projects includes many, many, many of these amenities. They're very heavily utilized by the units. We actually find that it keeps tenants from needing to leave as much to go and utilize some of these amenities off-site, such as laundry, et cetera. If folks cannot afford to put a laundry machine in their units, we have community laundry within the building that they can simply walk down the hall and utilize.
Thanks. And I know you could stay up here, please, stay at the podium. I know that your project is not the only tax credit project. It's run into similar financing issues with the rising cost of materials, so appreciate you sticking with the intent of the project. Tell me a little bit about how it's enforced, especially the concern about the seniors, making sure that it's seniors 55 plus.
Sure, it's required. As part of the leasing process, applicants are required to submit to us, just as anybody would in a normal apartment complex, all of their income verification, et cetera, associated with purely the rent side. There is also, that dovetails into the affordability restriction number 1, but then as part of review of Social Security information, background checks, et cetera, age is one of the things that is required. If someone is 54 years old and applies to live at this complex, they cannot, regulatorily. If we allow them to and the state finds out, we are essentially disbarred as a developer for the state, and in every other state that we participate in, you have to check a box on the application that says, have you ever been disbarred from noncompliance of any other states that you've participated in housing developments? If we check, yes, we've been disbarred, then that sort of puts us out of business. So we take that very heavily. The investors that invest in these projects are institutional in nature, and so their documentation and regulatory aspect is greater than, frankly, you would run into on any of the traditional market rate apartments that are getting built around town. So documentation, review of such, and compliance is an absolute necessity for these projects.
Thank you. Any other questions for the applicant? All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have one follow-up question for staff that was regarding what we're actually, here to discuss. The zoning district that was selected. Tell us a little bit about that process in general, and were you looking at different zoning districts and where you landed?
I think we looked at just about every zoning district we had for this type project. There are only, we have the MD 17 and then the MD 10. The multi-dwelling low, the 10 units per acre wouldn't work because of, their vested site plan. The only multi-dwelling unit we had was the MD 17. The only other caveat to consider would be like a commercial district mixed use. If they were to add commercial uses on property, that's something we could consider, but then they would have to zone it to a commercial zone, which is even more intensity of traffic. And so in analyzing our code, the only one that closely matched it, as best we could, was the MD 17 as the only district that we could consider.
Thank you. Commissioner Bowman, was that a hand up?
No, just adjusting volume.
Okay. All right, thank you. Commissioners, let's have some discussion on this one. What do you think? Do you have a question for the applicant?
I have a question for staff.
Oh, sure. Fire away.
Mr. Sharp, can you speak into your microphone?
So, should the times not allow the applicant to proceed forward, even if they were approved, what would happen to the site?
So are you asking me if the annexation doesn't
I'm saying if, it's hypothetically, the application for the zoning is approved, but for conditions beyond the control of the developer, because of the volatility of today's times, they're not able to proceed forward. What would happen to the zoning on that site?
The zoning would stay at the MD-17 tied to the site plan.
But not with the conditions that are being put forward.
The conditions will follow.
I'm sorry.
The project, I mean, if this project were to fall through, the zone would still be MD-17 for a 72-unit senior housing development as approved by this vested plan. If someone else decided to build something different, then they would come back through a conditional district modification process back through this board.
Fine, thank you.
Thank you.
That is, if the property is annexed. You have to give that caveat.
We need some deliberation on this. We had a very rough public hearing, so I'd like to have some discussion amongst the commissioners before we have a vote.
Well, I'll jump in.
Where? Okay. Commissioner Bowman, thank you.
Thank you. Well, Madam Chair, I know you're very well versed in this unique housing sort of type, affordable or income range, as we've been talking. And I can contrast this application with one that we heard last month that was very much not defined. In fact, they were requesting a straight rezoning. And we rejected it. And here they've got not only a thoroughly worked out plan, one that's shovel ready and previously approved, and they managed to thread the needle and bring more affordable housing to our area, which is needed. And I just think that's worth doing. It's going to get done anyway. It could be not affordable in market rate, and we have plenty of those, and this is sort of the thing that we need more. Just my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Pollack?
Well, I guess follow-up to his comment is, yeah, I guess if the council says, no, we are not going to annex, and to Jeff's point a few minutes ago, this thing can proceed under the, what is it, MD-17? I mean, the project could proceed anyway, right?
Under the county's zoning.
For the counties, yeah, it would be just part of the county.
If the city council doesn't annex, then our recommendation doesn't matter.
Right. So I mean, this is kind of an interesting dilemma. I mean, who approves what and what does it mean, if anything? That's where I find this interesting, because we could vote to not want to do this zone, and that would be the recommendation to council. Council could say, boy, commission makes sense, we're not going to annex it, or they're going to say, commission doesn't know what they're talking about, we are going to go ahead and annex it as the proposal. I mean, this, whichever way this goes, and somebody correct me if I'm wrong, whichever way the voting goes, this project's still going to move forward.
Correct.
In one way, shape, or form.
In some way, yeah. That's, they're committed to the project, and they've already gotten it approved. So.
Understand.
Commissioner Sharp?
If you believe in the project, though, it is more viable with city support than it is with county. And so effectively, this is a much deserved and well-needed part of the market where senior citizens with affordable incomes need a place to live in order to stay in New Hanover and Wilmington. So it does matter what our decision is. It matters on the viability of the project and how they can qualify for state funding.
Thanks. And when I said our decision doesn't matter, it was regarding the annexation.
I understand that.
Okay.
Okay, I'm just saying, yes, I'm just saying that it does matter on annexation. It does matter on providing workforce affordable housing in our greater community.
Commissioner Lennon?
I think we're making this way too complicated. This project was approved 2 years ago, and I think Mr. Sharp is exactly correct that we are increasing the probability of its success by assigning a conditional zoning to that site so that they can request to be annexed into the city by city council, not by us, to move the project forward. The couple of issues around this that really bother me are the ones around communication, and I mean that both from the public and from city staff. Reading the comments today, it was abundantly clear that someone has spread a whole lot of erroneous information, and it didn't help at all. And so I think that it's critical when something like this comes up, all of the resources and tools are there for the public to find out what's going on. It's not going to be spoon-fed to anyone. The same of city staff. I can't go through one more meeting and hear a complaint about a sign. So we got to get that figured out. I know that's, and I'm not meaning to sucker punch you, Ron, I'm sorry, but that should be the least used argument from anybody. It doesn't mean that we've got to spoon feed it to them, but it's got to be there for them. So I think, to me, this is an absolute no-brainer. This is conditioned upon 72 units for senior affordable housing. I can't imagine, Commissioner Bowman nailed it. Last month, somebody was asking us to straight up rezone property that ultimately can result in, was it 270 apartments? If this one project didn't happen? Well, that was also a no-brainer. No, because it didn't make sense. But now this site's being conditioned to this product. So I'm ready to vote in favor of it whenever you are.
Great. I agree. We have a rare opportunity to help move a project like this forward, and appreciate the commitment of the applicant to our community and the affordable housing needs here. Commissioner Woodruff?
Just a quick word. I would agree. I think the end result's going to be the same here. But I am sympathetic to all those people who wrote in the comments today. Any one of us, if you've been in that intersection up there and try to go down Middle Sound, it's a nightmare. 72 units, obviously it's not going to help. But, you know, it's water over the dam now, because I don't know how that issue is so hot with the neighborhood now that it wasn't raised or dealt with. Or maybe it was 2 years ago. But, you know, there's nothing we can do at this point. There could have been a compromise between 72 units and none. But the developer feels this is a need, and I know the city is pushing forward with the affordable housing. So I am sympathetic to the neighborhood up there, but I do believe it's a project that's going to go. Thank you.
Commissioner Lennon?
So, Commissioner Woodruff, to that point, in looking at the minutes from this, one person, I think we may have heard from her tonight, one person spoke at the public hearing in opposition when it went through the county. This is the sign-in sheet from the public meeting for the county, which curiously enough is dated February 4th, 2020, which was prior to everything being locked down in March. And there were 19 people for the county's thing versus 200 comments, over 200 that we got for tonight's meeting.
I mean, but didn't they say the county doesn't advertise as well? So maybe the residents were better informed on this meeting than the counties? Is that something that was brought up?
I have extended family in Middle Sound, and I can assure you that communication in Middle Sound is very good.
Can I address the county's information? This is Ron.
Certainly.
And I don't know what the code was back in 2020 when it went through the process, but they have a very similar process from the perspective of signs are required to be posted. They require the community meeting prior to their application being considered. They also, if I'm not mistaken, have a 500-foot notice, where we have a 300-foot notice. So they do follow they go above and beyond the state statutes, just like we go above and beyond the state statutes. I don't want it to sound like the county does not do a good job notifying the citizens and the public for their meetings. And if I can address real quickly, Mr. Lennon, your sign question. We do know that the sign was posted on the date by the date it was required to be posted. At some point it failed. I'm not going to accuse anyone of vandalism because we don't know that happened. We do know that it was knocked down or that it was down. Could have been the wind. They are large signs. We are And so that we went out and made sure that it was posted and actually added a third stake to make sure that it was reinforced. And it did, my understanding, it did stay up that time. I believe that about 3 or 4 days later. We are in the current process now evaluating our signage. When we adopted the Land Development Code, we did move towards having the applicants post signs. We provide the signs, the larger signs. We are evaluating those signs now and realizing that we probably need to modify them. And staff is, we're actually trying to evaluate what size is appropriate. Is it too many words on it? Is it confusing, et cetera? Do we need two-sided signs? So we're going through that process now to modify it, and then we will actually start posting signs again ourselves, I believe, for the June Planning Commission meeting to make sure they're up. So I'll just make sure we've heard it, but we have those signs. We are still trying to use them, but we also understand that we need to potentially change the way that we're doing those to make sure they're adequately signed. Signs are being posted. I don't want to sound like signs are not being posted by applicants either. They are being posted. They are large, and on the windy days we've had, particularly this spring, perhaps they're being blown down or whatever because maybe they're not being anchored as tightly as they should be. But they are being posted. We verify those each and every time.
Okay, what is the will of the commission?
I would make a motion.
Commissioner Sharp.
On item number 2, request for 205 Middletown Loop Road, initial zoning property to MD17 conditional district. I move the approval of this request as consistent with the objectives and policies of the following plans and adopted by the City of Wilmington. Create Wilmington Comprehensive Plan. I also want to note that I think we need to trust the process, the planning process of the county. And while this has dragged on several years, the needs for this critical segment of our population is really necessary. Therefore, the Planning Commission considers its approval to be reasonable and in the public interest because of many of the things that were discussed in terms of affordability. The proposal should apply to an appropriate zoning classification that would accommodate the approved affordable housing project. The site is in proximity to a variety of commercial services. It may serve as a suitable transition between commercial uses on Market Street and the residential areas to the south and east. There are specified now 13 conditions, and one of which is modified. It is our understanding that the applicant accepts these, and I move the approval.
Thank you. Commissioner Sharp eloquently made a motion to approve agenda item number 2. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Commissioner Lennon with the second. We will do a roll call vote. Commissioner Bowman?
Aye.
Commissioner Goins?
Aye.
Commissioner Lennon?
Aye.
Commissioner Lyle? Aye. Commissioner Pollock?
Aye.
Commissioner Sharp?
Aye.
And Commissioner Woodruff?
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0. And we are going to take a brief recess to give the captioners a break, and we'll be back in about 10 minutes.
course, it's beer.
All right, Commissioner Woodruff and Commissioner Bowman, we're getting ready to start again.
I'm back. Sorry for that.
All right, thank you. Meeting is called back to order, and we will get started with item number 3, which is a conditional district rezoning of a property containing 1.89 acres located at 1441 Eastwood Road from CBCD, Community Business Conditional District, to RBCD, Regional Business Conditional District, to allow an indoor recreation facility. And Mr. Mahoney is back with us to give our staff report.
Thank you again, Madam Chair and members of the Commission. As mentioned, this is a request to modify a CBCD Community Business Conditional District to rezone to RBCD Regional Business Conditional District. This site is located on the north side of Eastwood Road and contains approximately 1.89 acres and is currently vacant. This map shows the general vicinity surrounding the request, and these are the subject property. And these are the existing conditions and adjacent properties located along Eastwood Road. The site is currently zoned CBCD, Community Business Conditional District, as previously mentioned. It is bordered by MX zoning to the north and west, with CBCD to the east as well. And then there is R15 residential zoning to the south across Eastwood Road. There are residential uses located to the south and west along Eastwood Road, and the Mayfair development is located in the rear or to the north of the property, and there is an existing vehicle wash and grocery store located directly to the east as well. Here's the proposed site plan. This parcel was originally part of the conditional district rezoning for the adjacent car wash. The applicant is requesting to rezone this portion, this single parcel, from the CBCD Community Business District Conditional District to RBCD Conditional District. And this is to allow for an indoor skydiving recreation facility. The use is served by a single driveway connecting to Eastwood Road, and there are 2 pedestrian connections proposed. The site's located within a special flood hazard area, according to the North Carolina Flood Information System. Any development of the subject site would have to meet the city's requirements for floodplain regulations. According to the applicant, there would be fill needed to meet these regulations, in some cases potentially as much as 8 feet in portions of the site. There's also a wetland located on the site, a conservation resource. And additionally, the site's located within a watershed resource protection CAMA land use area. That limits impervious coverage of the site to 25%. That is unless the site meets the standards for exceptional design as per city code, and that would be required to be submitted at the TRC review level. There are elevations that the applicant has provided based on the measurement from undisturbed grade. The building's height would be 65 feet. The site's located within a greenfield site as multi-use place area of opportunity as identified on the comprehensive plan's growth strategies map. This designation promotes a variety of building types with abundant open space and buffers along low-density neighborhoods. The comprehensive plan also supports new commercial development that's compatible with existing neighborhoods and protects the desired character of the area. It further encourages appropriate building heights and uses along major corridors. This portion of Eastwood Road is primarily consisting of mixed-use developments, both existing and proposed, and single-dwelling residential neighborhoods. The proposed height and design of the structure is not compatible with the surrounding area and conflicts with the current and future design pattern of the surrounding developments. Additionally, as mentioned, the site's located in an environmentally sensitive area that mentions, as I mentioned, the conservation resource and special flood hazard area. Therefore, staff believes the proposed zoning amendment is not consistent with the recommendations of the Crate Wilmington Comprehensive Plan and is not reasonable or in the public interest. Staff recommends denial of this request. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have, and I believe we have the applicant here with a presentation as well.
Commissioners, do you have any questions for staff?
I have one.
Commissioner Pollock?
You mentioned the height, and this
Yes.
is 65 feet, so what is that, about 5 stories, or roughly?
Roughly.
What is and you talked about does not meet the height requirements as it's currently, as it's currently zoned. What are the height requirements in that area?
That is a great question. I don't have that right off the top.
Maximum height in the current district is 45 feet.
45 feet, okay. Thank you.
Any other questions for staff? Commissioner Lennon?
What are the other concerns other than height?
The height, the design of the structure not being compatible with the neighboring mixed-use developments and single-family residential, and also the impact within this environmentally sensitive area, the floodplain and wetland that are located on the property as well.
Do you have an aerial that shows, isn't there an aerial in the presentation? Yeah.
There we go.
I'm sorry, go back.
Sure.
Okay. So I'm trying to figure out where, I'm not being facetious, but I'm trying to figure out where the single family is. Respectfully, I understand there's houses across the street.
Right.
But essentially from what is that, Town Center Drive, right?
Correct.
Back to Military Cutoff with the exception of Eastport, where's the residential?
There's single family, as mentioned, across the street in Cavalier Woods, mostly along the south side of Eastwood Road. Yeah, if you're going to the east from Town Center Drive, that would be the majority of the single family.
And this site was originally intended to have two-story office buildings?
This was intended, well, yes, originally, and then it was rezoned to the car wash, and then parceled out as a separate parcel, which they've included for this rezoning.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
All right. Commissioner Sharp?
While you still have that on, to the right of the site in the curved, what is the use of that forested area there?
If I may, so directly to the east?
Yes, to the inside the curve.
That's the vehicle wash.
I'm sorry?
The car wash is currently constructed there.
Okay.
It's an old aerial.
Okay, it's an old map, so there are no trees there now. I mean, generally, it's developed land.
Generally, yes.
Fine, thank you.
Okay. And the applicant's here?
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mahoney.
I'm going to have to start wearing heels again. Good evening. I'm Amy Schaefer with Lee Case. I'm here on behalf of the applicant team tonight. I am going to turn this over to Mr. George Jameson for a bit to tell you more about the iFly project and his vision for this development.
Thanks, Amy, and thank you all for being here tonight to review our application. My name is George Jameson. I am a partner in a firm called Spencer Stewart, which is a global leadership advisory firm. I'm also a veteran of the U.S. Air Force, and I'm here.
Can you put your mic closer to you?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm also a veteran of the U.S. Air Force back in the Cold War days. I've got I'm also very fortunate to have a wonderful wife by the name of Kathy and 3 amazing daughters and 2 really fantastic sons-in-law who are with me here. Pat McGuire, he's the big one. He is a major in the U.S. Marine Corps in Special Operations. He's a veteran of 11 combat tours in the Middle East. He has been awarded a Bronze Star for Valor and a Purple Heart, among many other awards. Also, Dave Solar. Dave is a captain in the U.S. Marine Corps Reserves. Dave is also a veteran of combat duty in Syria, fighting ISIS. And the 3 of us are partners. We're the owners of Fly Wilmington, LLC. I would like to, just to introduce the project to you, show you a very brief 2-minute video. If we could put that on? Nope. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry.
That's all right.
I could do it myself.
Ms. Schaefer, are you going to need more than the 5-minute time limit for the applicant presentation?
We might, but I can talk real fast, so we'll see how it goes. Oh, man. No.
Okay, never fails. Never fails. Should I?
Sorry about that. It worked earlier.
Okay.
All right.
Oops. Can we make?
Yeah, you can just go.
There- Okay. Sorry, I would have loved for you to see the video, but anyway, it's Fly Wilmington. It's the reason I wanted to show you a video. It's a spectacular facility. It is easy to, I think, to take a look at a project like this from a distance and think, okay, there's another, maybe a little fancier trampoline park. But our intention is for this to be a crown jewel for the city of Wilmington. This is a high-tech, sleek facility. It'll cost more than $10 million for us to build it. And it will be a center of excellence for sports. Indoor body flight is on the 2024 Summer Olympics as an exhibition sport, and we fully intend to send Olympians from the city of Wilmington to compete around the world in the future from our facility. It's a center of excellence for education. iFly is one of the most popular science, technology, engineering, and math programs in the whole country. And right now, it's the exclusive privilege of kids in large urban areas because that's where these facilities are. We intend to, we're really looking forward to actually offering these wonderful programs to the students of Wilmington. It'll be a center of excellence for team building, for corporate teams and other kinds of teams. It'll be a center of excellence for military training. And that's required training by that currently folks like Patrick, who is a military free-fall skydiver, is currently traveling around the country to do in facilities just like the one we're going to build. So it'll be available for specialized training for Marine Corps Special Operations in Camp Lejeune. And then finally, and maybe most importantly, it'll be a center of excellence for fun. Just for family fun, good, wholesome family fun. People from the age of 3 to 103 can come in and enjoy this facility. People of all abilities can come enjoy the facility. The facility we're proposing to build is, it's green. It makes no emissions. It'll make maximum use of solar technology. We're actually only proposing to develop 40% of this site, so we're going to preserve 60% of the trees and vegetation on the site. It doesn't really, it has virtually no impact on the traffic patterns because even at peak use, the traffic is in and out is minimal, and it's quiet. The loudest thing about it is the chiller unit. So it's it's the same as the air conditioning outside of every home here in Wilmington. We've had tremendous support from the veterans community. This is a veteran-owned business, and we've had tremendous support in Wilmington from the veterans community. We've had tremendous support from the business community, and we're hoping that we can get support from the city to build this, what we believe is going to be a real asset to the city of Wilmington. So thank you again for giving me a couple minutes to speak, and I'll turn it back over to Amy.
Thank you for giving us that time. We really thought it was necessary because this is a different kind of business. And so we kind of wanted to explain that. And now I'm going to try to get to the nuts and bolts of the planning and zoning issues. So again, Mr. Mahoney, I borrowed his picture from his plan. Here's an overview, and again, this is an older GIS overview without even the car wash on the site, but just to give you some context of where the property is located. Again, the property history, Mr. O'Mahony went through that, so I won't belabor that, but happy to answer any questions. the current zoning. So as you can see, we're in close proximity to MX zoning, which has a maximum potential height of 6 stories. We are also in proximity to UMX, and I'll have some pictures of that proposed site plan in a little bit, as well as current RB zoning. This is the site plan. As you can see, there's a blue line stream that circles about three sides of the property, which is one of the reasons for lack of interconnectivity. In order to protect that resource, we don't want to cross it. In addition, the car wash site and the Mayfair Reserve at Mayfair sites are already developed in such a way that there's just not a potential for connectivity to those. So the connectivity would be through Eastwood Road. However, there is pedestrian connectivity throughout the site and then along the sidewalk to Eastwood Road. And Mr. Collier's here and can answer site-specific questions. So the surrounding projects and the compatibility with the surrounding neighborhood, these are just some of the projects that are already in the works or approved. Centerpoint Apartments and Centerpoint Mixed Use, that was that UMX that you could see down there. The Encino building behind us in Mayfair is about 50 feet. Autumn Hall is zoned MX and can be up to 6 stories, and our proposed project is 65 feet. Again, this is just kind of an aerial of what surrounds us. So again, as Mr. O'Mahony said, the single family is on the other side of Eastwood Road from our proposed project. This is a rendering of the Eastwood Military Cutoff Overpass that is in design and will be in very close proximity to our project, which again increases the height in the area, as well as a picture of Centerpoint, a rendering of Centerpoint that is also connected by sidewalk to our proposed project. So again, the height is already there or coming on Eastwood Road. So the closest residential use to us is the Reserve at Mayfair. So we have this design that can show you there's 288 feet of separation between their buildings and our buildings. Their building there is 42 feet in height. There's also some grade and topography separations. 148 feet of natural vegetation separates us. So this is kind of a rendering of how that would look in a cutaway. And then, as you can see, Eastwood Road. So the factors for zoning approval. Again, our property is near growth nodes. The mixed-use status of the surrounding areas would also support this business use. The future Eastwood Road and Military Cutoff Overpass, as well as all of the pedestrian and sidewalk connections to the surrounding uses. We are in close proximity to 3 mixed-use centers. As you can see, right in between those 2 blue centers would be our property, also close to the red circle, which is the growth node. So the factors for rezoning approval: greenfield sites as multi-use places, suburban mixed-use development. Well, this is a mix of uses. It's adding another use to what's already there. Pedestrian connectivity. Open space and buffering to surrounding uses. As Mr. Jamison said, our project is only utilizing about 40% of the space, and we're providing the open space and the buffers to the apartments behind us. And building type variety. It's a variety. It's different. How impact on the neighborhood. Vegetative buffers. The property is clean with no emissions, and Mr. Collier can certainly speak to the design and the impact on, the blue line stream and stormwater and things like that. Minimal traffic impact. There are only a few people that can be in the building at a time to fly, and this is much more of a reservation type use. You reserve your time slot to come. It's not really as much of a drop-in as would be. And again, all the additional pedestrian connections that are being provided. So how is this in the public interest? Educational and STEM opportunities, entertainment opportunities, sporting opportunities, a wide client base. As Mr. Jameson said, 3 to 103, and they also have an All Abilities program where disabled individuals can come and fly. In addition to their educational and STEM opportunities, they do reach out to underserved youths and try to have programs for them so that they can come and experience that educational. And as Mr. Jameson said, this is not an inexpensive building, so it would add to the tax base. We think that this section of Eastwood Road is evolving. There's a median project that was just recently approved and completed, the overpass, as well as all of the new development that's been approved in the area. This project is in close proximity to 3 mixed-use centers. We feel it does comply with the vision of the comprehensive plan. It creates a unique place providing pedestrian connections. It's a clean facility that buffers from the adjacent uses and would have minimal impact on the roadways. And this project will provide numerous educational, entertainment, and economic benefits to the city of Wilmington. Happy to answer any questions, and like I said, our whole team is at your disposal if there's anything in particular that you'd like us to talk about.
Commissioners, what are your questions for the applicant? Commissioner Bowman?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Ms. Schaefer, I think RB under the new Land Development Code allows additional height. It has a base height and it has a provision for additional height. But I believe that additional height is only permitted with a reduced footprint maximum. And, it's interesting that this is right next to the car wash, which is a low profile, probably much more site coverage and still draining into a blue line stream. So, we put that restricted footprint into the rules such that we could have, I think, a lower impact. Did you have any maybe non-flat drawings, 3D views that could be put on the screen?
Yes.
Thank you.
Sure. And again, we would have to comply with all sign code regulations, and this is a rendering.
Commissioner Bowman, you're on mute.
I'm not seeing that remotely. Do we need to click a screen
Oh, okay.
to see the rendering?
Are you able to see my PowerPoint, sir?
I did, yes. Now I can see.
Now you can. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Let me see. Now I lost it. I was going for another one. Let me go back to that one.
Well, the reason I ask is that the elevation drawings appear very flat. Okay.
Yeah.
And am I seeing this correctly? Is that actually open space in the middle there?
Yes, sir, it is. You can see the horizon through that. And I apologize that the video didn't work. It had some additional pictures.
It would probably cover all this. Is sort of why I'm asking the questions. And so, unusual as it is, I'm not familiar with these, but I assume that the center column there is the sort of fall chamber, and that the two outer bands are like stairs or elevators, such that you could facilitate getting up there for launching.
Yes.
I'm so sorry,
Okay.
the video didn't work. Yes, that center is the wind tunnel itself. That center column is the wind tunnel. The building, there are 2 large electric fans, very sophisticated electric fans on either side at the top. And so what they do is they push air down the sides and it comes around up and into the wind tunnel. And so people aren't actually falling, they're floating on a cushion of air that's up to 125 miles an hour. Again, and I just want to make the point that despite all of that, there's no noise that coming out of that building with all of that. The loudest part of it is a chiller system, which is behind the building in an enclosure. So all of that happens without any adding to any noise.
All right, thank you for that clarification. Usually when we see a tall building, it's just building all the way up, and this is a little different.
Commissioner Lennon?
this may be for somebody else on your team, and I apologize, I've looked at this map until my eyes exploded. How far from the edge of pavement to the building?
Gotcha.
And I think you had a slide that showed it
Yes,
going
sir.
one way but not the other. Or maybe it did go the other.
Where's your section view? Right there. Hi, Richard Collier with McKibbin Creed. We're 65 feet set back from the right-of-way line to the edge of pavement. That number is somewhere around 35 more feet, 35, 40 feet, so in addition to. So you're almost 100 feet back from the pavement itself on Eastwood Road. And one of the things, this picture shows it pretty well, Mr. Bowman was discussing the building height and the 65 feet. So the 65 feet, which one can I use to point with?
I just use the,
Okay.
to point. Oh, yeah.
Can y'all see the little hand on there? Can everyone see, even on the screens, can you see it? The little hand moving? All right, so the center part of this building where the air chambers are, that is the only part that is 65 feet tall, and it's about 30 feet wide, and it's 60 feet tall, and it's kind of in a big U with that center chamber coming down. So the entire building that you see on the plan is not 65 feet. That yellow area that's on that little inset map, that's the only area that's 65 feet tall. So everything else below that is somewhere in the, I don't know, they're 23, 24 feet tall, so that it's not that high. Also, what's not really seen is below grade, there is what's called a crawl space, but the crawl space is kind of where the air circulates through and goes back up. That has to be measured in the 65 feet also, because the grade that looks really flat underneath this right now, which will be whenever we build it, but right now the grade starts to fall down towards the creek. So there's a portion of this below grade that's still included in that thing. When we build it, the height above grade will be somewhere closer to a 55, 58 feet, not 65 feet. So but because of the way the zoning code is written, and I agree with zoning code, you know that very well, we have to measure from the undisturbed earth. So that's the 65 feet, and that's why we're asking for that height. But what you will see visually is more in line with what you're going to see at Center Point, what's in the other commercial areas around.
But that grade's going to be consistent with the multi-use path on Eastwood?
Correct.
When you're done?
Correct. The grade in the road is about 18 and a half, and the building finished floor will be about 20.
So, and forgive me, but it's going to be, would you say 55?
It's about 55 feet above that grade line, above finished floor.
Okay. And if I'm reading this correctly, it's roughly 205 feet from the building to the edge of right-of-way on the other side of Eastwood Road?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Commissioners, anything else for the applicant right now? Commissioner Pollack?
Quick question on the parking. You make a couple points. It says, and I realize this is a by appointment facility.
Right.
So when you talk about like 4 to 6 cars every 30 minutes,
Right.
or, hypothetically, does that factor in your other point where it's made later on where it says you're going to partner with the military for training opportunities? So given the amount of military that live in the area, if they were to use the facility, it would still be a by appointment.
That's correct.
And what kind of hours would you be thinking about on this?
So the way it runs, and I've asked them this a lot of times because my impression was always they're going to assume the convoy's coming down the road to come fly.
Yeah.
But what can happen is there can be 12 people flying.
Yeah.
There can then be 12 people waiting to fly, and there can be 12 people leaving. So at any time, the most that's inside of that building is 36. So if you start looking at a group of folks that are coming in, you're not going to have 36 cars in the parking lot either. You're going to, because you're coming in, if a family's coming, they're coming in a car of 4. So the way the studies have ran, and this is on all the I-flies across the country, they think the maximum parking they need is 36. Well, our zoning code doesn't even get close to that. So 22, 23 is about the least that we could park it with in having some additional space for employees as well. There will be 4 to 6 employees in the building. Now, the Lidle property has some cross-access easements for parking, so there's an ability to have some of our employees park over in their parking lot just from that sharing of parking space to free up some of the spaces on site.
Okay. So can I ask Major McGuire?
Absolutely.
A quick question? Because I saw you were about jumping to come up here. So from a military training standpoint, I mean, would your intent to be to try to augment something going on in Jacksonville, or just creating a whole new venue that's closer to this area? I mean, how do you see that working?
Yeah, typically, sir, and I apologize, and thank you for your time, and thank you for your question. It's a great question. And typically what you see from the military training aspect, well, the original concept of the facility, as I brought up the vision, was Marine Special Operations Command, the Marine Reconnaissance Units, and certainly the additional airborne units on Camp Lejeune. We don't have a facility to use this, and it's actually a required portion of our training.
Right.
So we'll fly, we'll drive to other parts of the state, to Charlotte, to any number of places, which is at huge cost to the command, to the DoD, but also away from our families, which is really the most important aspect when we're talking about traveling for training, and we call it head to bed. Being away from our families is just the natural cost of deployments and wanting to be home. But for any typical training you see in terms of how many, the use of it, anywhere from 4 to 5 to 6 cars during normal business hours, in the same fashions that any portion of the civilian population have access to the facility, that's what you would see. So, when we first started going through the planning process, the vision of convoys coming down the road, it's just not applicable, one, for the specialized use of the facility, and two, what the facility can actually facilitate. So a special operations team of 3, 4, 5 cars during normal business hours.
But again, it'd be the whole concept of by appointment.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, it's a reservation-based system, so there's no showing up, and typically what you would see, I would just compare it to far less traffic than you would see from any coffee shop or any type of additional use nature of this actual property.
And I'm trying to draw the parallel between facilities I'm used to are like indoor rock climbing facilities where you just show up, sign up, and go find a wall and.
Yeah, no, because of the specialized use nature of it, it's all reservation based. So you know when you're showing up and you know when you're leaving.
Okay, nothing like this at Bragg or anything like that?
No, they actually, so the closest wind tunnel is actually outside of Fayetteville, which was not purpose-built, but its primary use is through the special operations community out of Fort Bragg, and being it's still for the military, it's still for, as I've used those facilities, still it's an overnight trip, it's per diem, it's away from the family, so that facility is available, but to be frank, 24-hour booked, and as we would, it's not a viable facility that it's used for the immediate command.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I have a quick question about the connectivity, interconnectivity. Is the applicant willing to consider connectivity to the parking lot next to, the car wash?
So,
And if there were minimal impacts to the stream?
Yeah, it's my understanding, and I apologize, I wish I had had a better site plan, but if you can see, Commissioner Lyle, if you were to park, there's that little parking, you can see the parking island right here. Oh goodness, now I'm moving things in the presentation. You can see the parking island right there, and then this is where you actually drive through the car wash. So the traffic comes down through here and then through the car wash. So there's really not an opportunity to connect back there, even if we were able to cross the stream.
Okay. The driveway, I know this is a DOT decision, but I assume it's going to be right in, right out?
Yes.
Okay. And you mentioned the signs, and it would have to go through the sign ordinance. How close are we in the exhibit you have? How close are we to meeting the sign code?
Yeah. I don't know that that's been vetted yet, but let me ask Mr. Collier to come up because I don't want to misspeak, and I'll get the picture up while he's coming up.
I see we've gotten Ms. Thurston's attention as well. She's our sign person.
We have shown prototype drawings to everyone, the elevation views, because that's what's available. The specific architecture and the final architecture for this site has not been completed yet, which includes the signs. Now, there will be indoor skydiving, there will be the little red logo with the guy flying on it, yes, but they will conform to the city sign code. I mean, that's what we have to do. So what's in those plans are prototype drawings, and it's like a grocery store. When you get a prototype plan, it's got every logo they can imagine, just so they have options as they go through in the sign code. So it will meet our sign code. How close is what's in here? I really don't know that answer.
Okay. Commissioner Lennon?
On the tree removal plan,
yes,
I know some of these trees look like they need to be removed to maintain the site distance triangles, but the rest of them right on the edge, are those, well, I'm wondering if some additional trees don't help break the building up a little bit.
Right. And I think what we're trying to do is keep as many trees as possible. That way we keep the grading from the curb line up to the site the same as it is today. The only place we're really grading heavily is where the building will be, where we have to build the grade just to get it in flat. But from the street all the way back to the parking areas and the drive aisles, we're trying to save as many trees in there as possible. We don't have a lot of options in the site distance triangle. I mean, the code is written in a way that, you know, if it's in there, you're supposed to have 30 inches to 10 feet clear, so the tree may be able to stay, but it's just a matter of the obstruction. Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Mr. Collier. Okay, we will open the public hearing for agenda item number 3. And we have 10 minutes for people to speak in favor, and then 10 more minutes to speak against, in opposition. So we'll start with anyone who's here to speak in favor of agenda item number 3.
Good evening, members of Planning Commission. My name is Josh Hollingsey. I am an employee of the Wilmington Chamber of Commerce. We're located at 1 Estelle Place in downtown Wilmington. I have the privilege of serving as Vice President of Small Business Development and Business Retention at the Wilmington Chamber of Commerce. The Wilmington Chamber of Commerce is among the oldest in the state and currently in its 154th year of operations. Today, we are a collection of over 900 businesses, both small and large, representing more than 40,000 employees in southeastern North Carolina. Thank you for the opportunity to provide public comment in support of the iFly team and development. Over the past few months, I've had the privilege of getting to know and spend time with the applicant team, Patrick, Dave, and George. What started as an intense search that considered numerous metro areas throughout the southeastern region of the United States has slowly narrowed to the city of Wilmington, and more specifically, the site and rezoning request before you this evening. The story of this business is incredibly inspiring. A former Special Ops Marine, Major Patrick McGuire, and his veteran colleagues have laid the groundwork for something incredibly special. With your approval, this team will bring a new family-friendly asset to Wilmington, along with taxable investment and jobs to our community, all of which is centered around an experiential opportunity typically reserved only for highly trained military personnel and the small fraction of people with the budget and risk tolerance to venture into the sport of skydiving. What is truly exciting about the Chamber is how iFly successfully blends together many of the best parts of our community: tourism, recreation, military veteran enterprise, and education into a unique development that will elevate the entire community. More specifically to the request and meeting is consideration for the rezoning. The team, in conjunction with the local allies, have spent countless hours searching for perfectly compatible property. As you imagine, the sites are very limited, but fortunately they found a property that is suitable, that we feel is suitable. This site has defined history, and I believe this project, while requesting a different zoning designation, and many practical day-to-day uses will have less intensive uses than prior approved development plans, especially in a few meaningful categories: overall building footprint and the anticipated daily vehicular traffic. So regardless of the decision, thank you for your consideration. We would encourage you to support the rezoning. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else here to speak in favor of this item? Okay, we will move on to anyone who is here to speak in opposition to this item. Okay. Anyone here to speak on this item? The public hearing is closed. Ms. Bradshaw, would you recap our public comments that came in over the web, since we have a little time?
I'm sorry, I'm not prepared with that information. I believe we received somewhere in the neighborhood of approximately 20 comments. There were 3 or 4 against, probably 8 or 9 in support of the project. So we had both support and opposition in the public comment. You should have received all but, yes, I believe all but 2 that both came in after the 3 o'clock time frame, and both were in support of the project.
Okay, thank you. And all those public comments are available upon request if anyone needs to review those. So, all right. Commissioners, your questions? Would the applicant like to come back up and address?
I'm sorry, we didn't get those public comments. If there were anything in the public comments in the 3 or 4 that were against that you would like me to address, I'm happy to do so, but we have nothing to add, but are happy to answer any other questions.
Okay. Commissioner Bowman?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I got to say, I was curious about this one. It's, at a glance, it seems to be really sort of out of the box, out of any kind of box. And the more I think about it, the less environmental impact it'll have than many of the things that could go there. And, you know, I sort of feel like it being a unique thing, it deserves to go to City Council to have them ultimately hear it. And I'm not really sure why on paper and staff review it didn't do so well. So just some general comments from me.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Madam Chair, I would just echo what Commissioner Bowman said. It grew on me. I think the understanding, especially driving the corridor and then really realizing what's happening in that whole area between Mayfair, between the other project, between the flyover that's coming at Military Cutoff and Eastwood Road. And I think, and also understanding from Mr. Collier what the actual height's going to be based on the grade that's there now at the walkway. I feel very comfortable with it.
Me too. This area is really transitioning, and we have Centerpoint coming, for example, down the street with building heights that are similar or greater. And Autumn Hall's allowed, you know, the slide about the, do you remember give me a blank stare, the slides about the building heights. That was one of the biggest concern was the building, the building heights. I think that was pretty convincing.
It's only 45 feet if you take out the 20 feet in the middle.
That's right. Well, I was also going to say, I think the only thing we could get with less traffic impact would be if we left it as it is. I mean, if you look at these counts, they're, so I think in that regard, I think it's a great transition, minimal impact to traffic. You know, candidly, the interconnectivity is I know critically important, but I think without creating more environmental into the stream, and just the logistic issue of the way the car wash is laid out, I don't think that's something to kill the project for.
All right, what's the will of the commission?
Well, I'll make the motion, but I'm struggling how to phrase this thing because it's a motion to deny the denial. Is that how this thing gets phrased? Because that's what the staff recommendation is.
Oh, no,
is a denial.
we're not voting on the staff recommendation. We're voting on the actual item, the actual request. So
Actual request itself.
Yeah, so
okay.
if you'd like to
Yeah.
recommend approval, then
Yeah,
that would be the.
okay, thank you for the clarification.
question.
Yeah, I would like to recommend approval, make a motion to approve the project. It's consistent with the objectives and policies of, Create Wilmington. I think this brings as stated earlier, it's an out-of-the-box thing. We've not seen something like this, but I think that makes it more exciting, and the proposal would allow for good commercial use that's consistent with the surrounding mix and use on Eastwood Road. So I would make a motion to approve the project.
With conditions?
With the conditions that are, with the 5 conditions that are stated in there. Yes, thank you, Al.
I second.
Thank you. We have a motion to approve agenda item number 3 by Commissioner Pollock, seconded by Commissioner Sharp, and we will do our roll call vote. Commissioner Bowman?
Aye.
Commissioner Goins?
Aye.
Commissioner Lennon?
Aye.
Lyle, aye. Commissioner Pollock?
Yes?
Commissioner Sharp?
Aye.
Commissioner Woodruff?
Aye.
All right, motion passes 7-0. Moving on to agenda item number 4, we have a general rezoning of a property containing 1.25 acres located at 430 Forest Park Road from R15 residential to R5 residential. And Mr. Walton is back up with us for our staff report.
Yes. So as stated, the applicant proposes to rezone the site 1.25 acres from R15 to R5 medium-density mixed residential districts. The property is currently vacant. The existing single-family house was believed to be demolished in 2021. The R5 district would allow single-family lots as well as duplex, triplex, quadruplex, and townhome lots. A chart explaining the potential number of lots is on page 2 of your case summary. This is a regional photo of the site near Jungle Rapids, south of Oleander. These are photos of the site itself as a wooded vacant lot. These are the adjacent properties to the site. As you can see, as you get closer to Oleander, it gets into a more commercially zoned area, and it is surrounded by multifamily and single family across the street. The comprehensive plan supports new developments that is compatible with existing neighborhoods and protects the desired character of the area. Medium-density residential uses are intended to serve as a transition from more intense commercial uses. The plan promotes location-efficient housing near services and employment centers. The site is located near commercial services and uses along Oleander, including medical services and near a high-capacity transit route. The proposed higher density residential zoning presents an opportunity to transition from the commercial areas along Oleander to the residential areas within Forest Park neighborhood. Based on the information contained in the case summary and the Create Wilmington Comprehensive Plan, staff believes the request is reasonable and in the public interest and recommends approval of the request. And the applicant is also here to make a presentation.
Commissioners, any questions for staff?
Thank you.
Thanks. And the applicant is here. Welcome, Ms. Wolf.
Good evening. I'm Cindy Wolf, and here on behalf of the owner. It's unusual, obviously, to be here with a conventional rezoning, but I think this is the boldest exhibit that I got, that it is tucked in here beside multifamily low density, adjacent to O&I, certainly the CB, which is the Jelly Beans, which is a modular home dealership, and another commercial, a little bit more industrial style of commercial building. So our petition is to rezone this from the R15 to R5 for the purpose of basically development. I think the chart that Jeff provided is helpful, but it's a little deceptive. And I know that what we've got around us in the multifamily low density is basically quadruplexes. That is to the rear of us and to the basically the south of us. And I know that, you know, your basis of your decision is purely on, is it consistent, which I believe that the staff policy review has shown that. But this is the type of thing that we have in mind. Basically, it's very easy then to turn it into 3 lots. If it were to be more units, as Jeff showed in his exhibit, then you'd end up with street coming in, you'd end up with all kinds of things. So neither here nor there. I'm just, this is the type of vision that they have for it. Because I know there was some concern over tree save, and this would certainly satisfy that totally. So the important part is that we do believe this is consistent as an R5, and it would provide more housing in a time when we need that. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioners, any questions for our applicant?
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we'll open the public hearing for agenda item number 4. And we'll start with anyone who's here to speak in favor of this item. Okay, anyone here to speak in opposition of item number 4? Anyone here to speak at all on agenda item number 4? We will close the public hearing at this time, and we'll go to the commissioners to see what their thoughts are on this one.
Madam Chair, I think this is exactly what we asked for with the LDC.
I agree, it's an ideal transition in a great community, and as Ms. Wolf pointed out, we need the density. So, all right, what's the will of the commission? Commissioner Lennon?
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion on agenda item number 4, the rezoning of 430 Forest Park Road from R15 to R5. This request is consistent with the objectives and policies of the following plans adopted by the City of Wilmington, the Create Wilmington Comprehensive Plan, and the Planning Commission considers its approval to be reasonable and in the public interest, as the proposal original density and a variety of housing types, and serve as an appropriate transition between the existing commercial uses along Oleander Drive and the surrounding residential real estate. Therefore, the Planning Commission recommends approval.
Thank you. Commissioner Lennon has moved to approve agenda item number 4. Is there a second?
Second.
Where did that come from? Commissioner Pollack. All right, we'll do a roll call vote. Commissioner Bowman?
Aye.
Commissioner Goins?
Aye.
Commissioner Lennon?
Aye.
Commissioner Lyle? Aye. Commissioner Pollack?
Aye.
Commissioner Sharp?
Aye.
And Commissioner Woodruff?
Aye.
The motion passes 7-0. Chapel is here for that. Okay, we're moving on to agenda item number 5, where we have some items to clean up with the Land Development Code, various amendments and cleanup items, and we have Mr. Chambers here. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for your patience. To present our
Good
staff
evening.
report.
I know it's been a long night. I'll try to make this as painless as possible. I only ask that you do the same. Not sure why this is not. There we go. So the new Land Development Code was adopted last year. We had an effective date of December 1st. At the direction of council, staff has continued to review and monitor that document for errors and elements that do not work in implementation. Staff has identified a number of cleanup items and amendments that are needed to correct minor errors, provide clarification and issues during this implementation. So on your screen, we've organized amendments into several categories, trying to make it easier to kind of get through these. Permitted uses, landscaping, frontage standards, dimensional design standards, measurements and definitions, and administrative provisions. That is still not working. So for permitted uses, this involves corrections to the permitted use tables. It removes the lot requirement for detached single dwelling and duplex units in the multi-dwelling districts. It allows warehouse and distribution center in the UMX with conditions, and then creates temporary parking as a new temporary use. For landscaping, we're going to clarify the applicability standards for the landscaping standards, correct a contradiction in our tree protection during construction standard, amends the plant size specifications, and amends the minimum soil volumes for our landscape islands, and then it clarifies street tree requirements, open space standards, and tree size calculations. And for frontage standards, it will clarify the maximum setbacks for our semi-urban frontages. For dimensional design standards, we will be proposing amendment to the workforce housing standards, amend the setback standards for residential in the 45 corporate limits, setback standards for commercial in the adjacent to residential, and setbacks for accessory structures. We'll be amending the ADU standards and standards for swimming pools. It clarifies building orientation in the multi-dwelling districts, clarifies the use of existing lots of record and lot dimension standards, and it clarifies the allowable building types in residential districts, and also clarifies the residential compatibility standards in our industrial districts. For measurements and definitions, it will clarify access standards for buildings and accessory structures, provide a definition for accessory structures and multi-tenant buildings because it doesn't exist at this time, and then it corrects a simple naming error, which is, once you get to that, is quite amusing what the error is. And then for administrative provision, it corrects the review authority table. So staff has identified several of these items we'd like to call out, provide a little bit more detail. Obviously, we have slides and additional information for all 27 amendments in here, so if you wanted to talk about any one of them individually, we're happy to do that. But we have several of them we just want to pull out to bring to your attention, just to focus on, because in our minds they're a little bit more important, carry a little bit more weight. So for permitted uses, we're proposing to allow warehousing and distribution centers within the UMX district, and then establish prescribed conditions for this use. This would facilitate the adaptive reuse of existing buildings. So the UMS district is a unique district in the city. There's several large structures in this district that were historically used for light industrial uses. The LDC currently allows light manufacturing uses in this district with conditions to allow these existing buildings to be used. These conditions allow for these older buildings to be adaptively reused, and then restricts the activities to the interior of the building so as not to disturb the neighborhood. Staff believes that warehousing and distribution centers should also be permitted in UMX. This amendment would allow warehousing and distribution centers, and would it also establish prescribed conditions similar to those that we're applying to these manufacturing uses that are already allowed in the UMX district. So also in permitted uses, we want to allow temporary parking as a permitted temporary use, and then also establish conditions for that use. This was requested by the Board of Adjustment in response to parking needs at Riverfront Park. Staff is frequently asked to allow vacant lots for temporary parking associated with construction projects and temporary events. The downtown area is a frequent host of temporary entertainment events. With the opening of the Riverfront Park, the downtown as a destination for special events has dramatically increased without a substantial increase in publicly available parking. In 2021, as mentioned, the Board of Adjustment considered 2 land use cases in which a private company was erecting temporary parking meters on vacant lots to capitalize on this demand. Rather than making a formal decision in that case, the Board of Adjustment requested staff to consider a text amendment to allow temporary parking, which is what we're doing here tonight. All right, so the next one will be under landscaping. This would classify trees as either understory or canopy trees to align with the current definitions. The meat of this would be to reduce the minimum soil volumes for canopy trees and establish a minimum soil volume for understory trees. For the application of the code, it's become clear that the landscape island provision is excessive. Staff did complete some benchmark research to determine soil volumes that are used in some comparable cities. They range from 270 cubic feet to 1,200 cubic feet. We also looked at a couple of reports that were completed by the city that recommends minimum soil volumes for canopy trees. One identified 1,200 cubic feet and the other 1,000 cubic feet. Further, the definitions for understory and canopy trees, the code includes definitions for understory and canopy trees, but does not include definitions for small, medium, and large maturing trees, which is how these are organized in the code. So our proposal is to align the definitions with how the trees are categorized in the landscaping standards so they're consistent. So this would classify trees as either understory or canopy, and then reduce the minimum soil volumes for canopy from 1,700 cubic feet to 1,000, and then establish a 500 cubic feet standard for understory trees. This is a revised proposal compared to what was included in your packet. I wanted to point this out. We're still making these standards consistent, but we're doing it kind of the other way. What was sent in your packet is we have a table that identifies the maximum front setback for semi-urban frontage requirements. The table said 75, and then we have an illustration, which is shown on the right side of the screen, that identified 90. So when we originally were going to fix the figure, but it came to our attention that when you start crunching the numbers for setbacks, the numbers didn't work out. So if you look at a maximum of 75-foot setback, if you have a 15-foot street yard, two 18-foot parking rows, a 24-foot drive aisle between those parking rows, that's 75 feet, leaving no room for sidewalk, no room for foundation plantings. So the idea is to bump it up to 90. So we would be amending the table to 90 to be consistent with the figure, which would allow for the maximum of 2 rows of parking, which the code prescribes for this frontage type. I know I just threw a lot at you right there on that one, but trust me, the numbers do check out. It would be 75 feet, and then you would not have an attractive frontage to that. You would have a building basically right up on a parking lot, and that's just not going to happen. The next, going backwards now. All right, the next one we wanted to call out was to require the opt-in workforce housing projects that include multiple buildings to disperse this workforce housing throughout the project. I know this was discussed recently when we have projects come through with workforce housing that they incorporate workforce housing to get their density bonuses up. And I think it came up here, and it might have come up with the council, where we wanted to make sure that that's not all concentrated in one part of the project or in one building, so as to make sure that those folks are dispersed throughout the project. So what we're proposing is to amend the multi-dwelling district standards and the commercial district mixed-use standards to say if you're going to use this provision and you have multiple buildings, you got to disperse it throughout the project. And then finally, the last one we want to bring to your attention is another revision compared to what was in your proposal. Your proposal originally was to increase the height of above-ground pool that could be constructed above the surrounding grade. The code was separating how you treated an in-ground pool versus an above-ground pool. Above-ground pool is considered an accessory structure, an in-ground pool is not. So basically, if you put something in the ground, we didn't consider it accessory structure, meaning you could have 2 additional structures, but we would put a height limit above what it could be above the ground, which is 12 inches. With the grade changes on certain lots and other considerations for how these things are actually constructed on somebody's property, it needed to be raised to allow for these in-ground pools to be constructed. Instead of just raising it up to a higher amount, we're just going to strike the provision altogether. We're not going to treat swimming pools as accessory structures at all. If you're going to put a pool in, you put a pool in, and we're going to reduce, there won't be an additional setback from the house. We're going to just take the provision out and let people put pools in how they see fit in their backyards. Those are the ones we wanted to bring to your attention, and as I mentioned before, I'm happy to dive in any of the other ones that are in your your packet, and available for questions.
I have a question about the permitted uses. When you take away the lot requirement, which I completely agree with, how does that impact the frontage requirement? The street frontage?
If you take away the lot requirement, the setbacks would be measured from the parent tract boundary.
Okay,
An
so,
example of this would be if you, we have a project coming through that's it's proposing a variety of housing types. So single, duplex, quadruplexes, all sorts of things. The current code require any single and duplex product within that project to be on its own lot. If you're in a project like that, why would we care if it's on a lot? And it makes it unreasonable for them to kind of put a road network in and try to figure out how to accommodate those things. So you could arrange your property how you want. The setbacks would be measured from the parent tract, and then you would arrange it internally as you see fit.
okay, so they don't have to have street frontage, they have more flexibility
They could ultimately, if they wanted to, they can townhome the individual lots out, the footprints. There's nothing against that, but you would not be required. Like, we're not saying you can't do it if you wanted to. If you want to have a single-family subdivision, sure, you put some lots in. But if you don't want to do it and you want to do a different type of project with different kind of products throughout that project, this would remove that barrier.
That's great. Thank you. Commissioner Lennon?
I know it says it, I just want to make sure the 90 from 75 is only the semi-urban.
Correct. It would only apply to that semi-urban frontage type.
Okay, thanks.
Commissioner Bowman?
Yes, thank you. And Brian, I want to thank you and your staff. There's some things I see in these corrections that I've encountered as problematic, and you would never know it until you work with real parcels and real buildings. Might be unique geometry or whatever. And so appreciate you fixing some of those glitches, and probably there's more to come. So,
there'll be more to come. We're already compiling our next list.
Okay. Well, anyway, it's appreciated.
Yes.
Commissioner Pollack?
Yeah, one question, Brian. If you go back to your landscaping slide. There you go. This really doesn't apply to residential homes at all, does it?
No.
Okay. Was there ever a thought to kind of, let me try and make this simple. People take down trees for a lot of reasons. And I don't know if the land use codes are attempting to, address that, where people just take down a slew of trees just to be taking them down, or if that's not something city wants to get into at this time.
We want to save trees. So,
Yeah.
I mean, depending on the project and the zoning and what you're doing, single-family residential lot is exempt from our tree standards. So a homeowner can do with what they want, do with the trees with what they want. So a commercial project, we're always looking for trees that are significant or specimen trees to design around. We want to protect those trees that are worthy of protection and make sure we're identifying those early on before we go too far to site development.
Is there anywhere that someone like myself or any of us could, if somebody had a question about residential trees, and that could point them to, if they had a question about what they can and can't do?
Other than staff? Yeah, I mean, if you're a homeowner and you have questions about tree removal, basically you can remove trees. We would always love to talk to you before you did something like that to see if there's any alternative available to do that. There's nothing in the code other than the exemption that I pointed out.
Okay.
But staff is always willing to talk about options rather than taking down a tree if it's at all possible.
Okay. Not to belabor the point. Thanks.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chambers, for the great work on this.
All right, thank you.
And Mr. Attorney, we have a public hearing for these, right?
Yes, ma'am, that's correct.
Great. Well, we will open the public hearing, and there's so many of them. Let's just open the public hearing for any, as opposed to saying oppose and against and all that. Let's just have a public hearing that is not constrained to any particular viewpoint. So the floor is open.
Madam Chair, for clarification, are we 10 minutes or 20 minutes as we're combining, or 15?
Good question, 20.
Thank you.
I think I can cover what I need to cover in less than 20 minutes.
Oh, that's great.
The reason I'm here, my name is Howard Capps. I'm a landscape architect and land planner here in Wilmington. Matter of fact, I've been working here for 35 years, which is hard to believe. But I've had the privilege of working with 3 clients since this ordinance took place in December. And I can tell you that one of the things I'm excited about is the reduction in the under section 18.321, which is on about page 4 of the information you were given from staff, parking lot landscaping. I've worked on 3 sites trying to meet and work with these large islands, so I'm very excited that they're going to be reduced in size, assuming that you approve this and the City Council approves it. One of the things that when I learned about this potential change on Monday when I was talking to staff about a project I was working on, I went back today and looked at what the impact would be in reducing the size of the islands. And what I found on a site that I'm working on currently, it doesn't make that much difference as far as getting parking to work out. What makes a difference is reducing the islands, and also if you could consider as part of this amendment, increasing the number of parking spaces that you can have in a row consistently. As you know, the old ordinance allowed 15 parking spaces, then you had to have a landscaped island. Now the requirement is 10 parking spaces and you have a landscaped island. So even though the island is being reduced based on this ordinance amendment, it doesn't make any difference in the case that I'm working on right now in how many lots you can get on the site. So I would like to suggest that you consider as part of this amendment, if you do approve it, under this section 18.321, if you can amend it in such a way, excuse me, that would indicate to City Council that part of the amendment would be allowing 12 parking spaces instead of 10, which is the maximum currently in the new ordinance. And one of the things I did notice in this package that you were provided, there are a number of communities that were looked into to look at their ordinance requirements. And I noticed of the 13 communities that specifically gave the number of parking spaces you could have in a row, 7 of the 13 allowed 12 spaces or more instead of the 10, which is what we currently have in the new ordinance. And that's the reason I've sat here for 2.5 hours, to be able to share that with you. And I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Capps. And it's been 3.5 hours.
Good evening. Cameron Moore, Executive Officer with the Wilmington Cape Fear Home Builders Association. I believe that the Planning Commission did receive comments, a letter on behalf, and basically I'm here to talk about the pool situation. I forget what section it is. I believe it was your last slide or close to the last slide. In those comments, and I do have some representatives here behind me tonight. I have 1 builder and also 3 pool contractors that we had some consultation with to kind of get to this point tonight. The amendment and essentially the strike through that you have on F in front of you solves our problem, and it solves their problem. How it solves the problem is basically when we get outside the flood zone on sloped yards and we look at a 24-inch kind of measurement. This all kind of became essentially because the old code was changed somewhere in the LDC rewrite. No one really saw it. These guys have projects that are actually being held up right now, trying to get permits in place. This does reverse and kind of go back to the old code. It also really, though, goes a little bit further and brings it in line with essentially what New Hanover County does. If you're in a flood zone, you build to flood standards, you build to the North Carolina Building Code. In those comments that you received, you should have also had 2 pictures. I'm trying to figure out how I can get this pool at my house and this one here. This is the grade issues that we're talking about. This is what the market is driving. These are what is essentially being built in our backyards right now. So again, staff, we are supportive of these changes. It takes us really back to a reset and also takes us a little further. in the sense that it doesn't have any differentiation between ground, above ground, and these guys can kind of move forward. They understand the planning process. They realize this has to get in front of City Council, but we are supportive of this and hopefully supportive of y'all moving this forward tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Anyone else here to speak regarding item number 5? Okay, we'll close the public hearing. Mr. Chambers, I do want to address the one question about the parking count, the minimum parking for between landscape islands. Is that
Yeah,
something you all were looking at for your next round?
Yeah, we actually had an opportunity to talk about that sidebar when we took a break. We're okay with that. I think it's a reasonable expectation. If you're going to lower the size of the island, increase the number of spaces between those islands. So we're comfortable with 12.
Okay.
If the Planning Commission wanted to make that part of the recommendation, we would include that as our amendment as it moved forward.
Commissioners, do you have any more follow-up questions for staff?
So you go from 15 to 12?
It would go from 10 to 12 is what.
10 to 12, sorry.
Yes.
Wrong one.
So you'd have no more than 10. Right now, it's no more than 10. If you guys wanted to make a recommendation that we'd be happy to support, to 12.
Okay, thanks.
All right. If there are no more follow-up questions for staff, do we have some deliberation? Any comments on any of the items before any?
Are we comfortable with taking changes on the fly? The recommendation was to 10, and then we have a recommendation to 12, and it's kind of on the fly. I wonder whether that's a good precedent or not. I have no issue, I have no knowledge on it, so.
Well, one factor that was important to me is the staff's has obviously looked into this, and also that it's kind of a compromise between what we used to have. We did have 15, right? And then
It is
so
a
it's still
compromise
kind of
from what was previously allowed. But also, if you're going to have, right now, the landscape island size it's excessive. When we say excessive, we mean it. It's 30-some feet wide. So if you have a landscape island that's 30 feet wide here and 10 spaces over, another 30 foot, if you reduce those islands like this, you've got more room in between them. So it just logically means you can probably get a couple more spaces in there. That's how we're looking at it.
Great. Does that help?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
It's precedent really than the item.
Sure. Yeah, and I think that would be a case-by-case situation, so if we get those. All right. What's the will of the commission on item number 5? Oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner Bowman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to approve agenda item 5, which is a cleanup and amendments to the Land Development Code as presented by staff tonight. And that this request is reasonable and consistent with the objectives and policy of the following plans adopted by City of Wilmington. Wilmington Comprehensive Plan, and the Planning Commission considers its approval to be reasonable and in the public interest because the proposed amendments will correct minor errors, provide clarifications, and correct issues, and it does, discovered during implementation of the Land Development Code, and help reinforce the overall goals of the comprehensive plan with one small amendment under page 7, section 18-321, parking lot landscaping, that the maximum distance between landscape islands be changed from 10 to 12.
I second.
Thank you. We have Commissioner Bowman has made a motion to approve agenda item 5. Do we have a second?
We do.
Commissioner Pollack with the second. And we will do a roll call vote. Commissioner Bowman?
Aye.
Commissioner Goins?
Aye.
Commissioner Lennon?
Aye.
Commissioner Lyle? Aye. Commissioner Pollack?
Aye.
Commissioner Sharp,
Aye.
and Commissioner Woodruff.
Aye.
All right, thank you for your continued focus on the LDC and making it the best it can be. The item passes 7-0. We were of like mind tonight. Anything else from the commission? Any items to bring forward from the commission?
Madam Chair, I'd just like to commend the staff. That was the easiest way to get through 27 changes that I've seen, so thank you.
I try to be pithy.
Okay, items from staff.
We had 6, was that right? 6 items go before council last night. I'm going to do my best to remember what they all were. I'm probably going to need help from other staff to remind me because that was a lot and it was a long day yesterday. They all got approved. I think we spent the most time talking about 5500 Wrightsville, where they were requesting the 32 townhomes at the corner of French and Wrightsville. Staff was generally supportive of the higher density there, but we thought it was more appropriate to have some mix of uses. The council ended up approving that, and I think it was a good thing to do. We're always learning as we move along, and luckily someone just gave me the agenda, so I can go right through it with you. 1610 Turberon Drive, the Covey Restaurant, was approved. 6261, 6265, the 14-lot residential subdivision on the eastern end of Wrightsville Avenue near Oleander was approved. 5737 Market Street, which is the multi-story mini warehousing next to the Honda dealership, that was approved. 6756 Market, which is the Stevens Ace, where they reverted back to RB, was approved. And then 109 and 111 Giles, where they wanted to put in the 2 quadruplexes, that was also approved. And they also approved their resolutions for the annexation, so that is moving forward on the June 7th meeting.
Okay, great. All right, unless there's anything else, we'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Are you making the motion?
I'm going to entertain it.
I will make it.
Commissioner Pollack has moved to adjourn. Do we have a second?
Second.
Commissioner Lennon with the second. Voice vote on this, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Have a great night.